Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started the regular board meeting of the Vallecitos Board of Directors on Wednesday, April 15th, 2015. And I understand we have some high-tech elementary school children who want to lead us in the pledge.
Come on up, guys. Look to Chris.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job.
Good job.
Dan, can we have a roll call, please?
Here. Here?
Here.
Here. Entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So
Move to
moved.
approve?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we have an introduction from Human Resources.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you very much. We have Veronica Flores, who joined the district on March 9th in the part-time position of cashier receptionist, which was vacant due to a recent promotion. Previously, Veronica worked for Christian Credit Counselors for the last 9 years. In her free time, she enjoys going to the beach, traveling, concerts, and walking her dogs.
Oh, nice.
Hello. Thank you. Oh,
Director Martin.
What kind of dogs?
I have two. They're both terriers. We rescued both of them. One's a small mix. I don't really know what. A surprise. And then we have a pit bull as well.
Huh?
Do they get along?
Oh yes, very well. One's 80 pounds. She's the mama, and then the little one's 10 pounds, and they stick together, eat from the same bowl. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
And tonight, we also are going to be recognizing Carrick Howe and his retirement. Now,
If you'd like to please come down. Garrett, come on up. Just to go back in time, Carrick used to work and live down south, and when he moved up here, actually moved to the beach. So I lost the bet. I bet within 3 years he wouldn't be working in here anymore because he was living on the beach. But I actually did the second interview with by phone because I was on vacation with Carrick when we hired him. So we did the interview on phone and hired him. So he's been here. So Carrick joined the district in November as the systems construction supervisor. That's the position he has had, and he will hold until April 22nd when he retires. He's going on vacation, so we thought we better get him before he leaves. During the time of the district, he started up our valve exercising program, which we were mandated to do. He's upgraded a lot of the construction equipment from the old theory of Band-Aids and duct tape. So he's done a good job of that. He's taken over the supervising of landscapers for all of our sites, and he's also seen the department grow from 8 people to 12. And the interesting thing about the construction department, just about every other department has somebody who worked in the construction department at one time. So he's very good about supporting his staff, encouraging them to get certifications that they need to move on. He supports them going to a different department. He doesn't begrudge them by moving on and upwards. He's very supportive of it, and his wife and children are here today, but we wish Carrick the best of luck, and it's been great working with you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah, 2001. No, I said 14 years. Do the math.
Thank you very much. I'll keep it short, because I always tell the guys at 4, make it a short speech so we can get out of here. But it's an awesome group of people. Thank you to everybody for your support and working together. Really, basically, everybody here made my job easy. So God bless you guys and all that you do, and thank you for everything.
enjoy your time. And away they go.
The kids are gonna sing.
And so
That's
much
good.
for us.
Yeah, that's good.
You're,
The only way you can keep them is that food.
exactly.
All right, moving right along, tonight we have a very special presentation by the students from High Tech Elementary School, and I don't know if if you want
Yeah,
to, Chris, start us off and.
Sure.
Why don't
Why
you give it a second?
Hold on a minute, Chris.
Yeah.
Well, and I can maybe add in about Carrick. We got a really nice comment on Facebook from a customer, Lynette Bordeaux, who had Carrick come out and find a leak on her property. Just, I mean, days before the guy's getting ready to retire, and he's still out there doing it and getting it done. Nice comment on Facebook. Really happy to see that. So I'm here today to talk to you about some students from High Tech Elementary School. They came out to visit the Sustainable Garden, which you've seen out front, and this was part of their community outreach effort and community project. And some of the students were here, and they just kind of stumbled upon General Manager Lamb. He just happened to be there, had a chance to sit down and interact with the students and film it. And they went back to their school and decided they'd develop a PSA on our behalf to talk about drought, water conservation, and the value of water. Their teacher is here, Kim Cockwell. Can you come on up, Kim? Kim, would you introduce all four of them for us, please?
Yes, I would love to. So these are brilliant fourth grade students, and like you said earlier, they took on the task to develop their own PSA. All the editing and the work done in the movie is on their own behalf, and they received a lot of critique from not only their peers, but they brought it to high school students to receive feedback and continue to make more and more drafts and revision in their movie. The ideas are all their own, and I'm really proud to present these four students, Owen, Ian, Peyton, and Noe. Would you like to come on up and speak a little bit about that?
We had one purpose for our movie, to save water. We didn't know how to do that, so we decided on a subject, succulent gardens.
How we made our movie, we were on cameras. We were videotaping from certain spots to get on our video. Owen, the editor, has put all of them together and edit most of all of the stuff.
Get up to the mic.
There were a lot of tricky parts in editing the movie and putting it together because like sometimes the camera wouldn't work or we would have some trouble editing, but mostly we had a very good time, our group, just like playing around and doing stuff, yeah. We basically did this movie to save water, and because succulents, well, it saves more water than regular grass, and we think that succulents could be used in most gardens that we usually see, and so.
Super. So Grace attended their premiere event at their school, and they came up with some pins, badges that some of our directors are wearing. They came up with this nice T-shirt, which I was going to give to Carrick, but I guess I missed them. And we're going to be able to show their video. It's been edited down, and it's got a little intro for it. And Ann, you got that for us? Super. Okay. Why don't you stay up here?
there's no need to have laws, especially within the business. Well, I think if on runoff and fees and all that stuff, we need to, most big dams, whenever you see a dam, like it's really big, they aren't for water storage, they're actually for flood. So that big storage.
If there's too much water in the lake, you can take it to another lake, kind of like do it all around, kind of like bees.
That's kind of what we're looking to do right now in the whole state. It is right now, but it's not like a helicopter, but we have pumps that are the size of each one. So the pump is so big, it goes smoothly. So what we have is when we build new dams, we don't want to dam up creek or stream, because there's a plan. So what we're looking at is building dams that are off stream. We just need a valley somewhere that doesn't have a lot of water. And then what we'll do is we'll catch the water, we'll pump, or we can't store it, we'll actually pump it to the other place, we store it, so we can bring it back easily. So kind of the same thing. Yes, we're already looking at doing that right now, it just costs a lot.
Yeah, that would be understandable. Even if we're way up here, and way down here, water's being wasted. How can we live this? We can live a more sustainable lifestyle. Water-saving ideas like these can save a ton of water. The rain method collects your rainwater and puts it into the rain barrel. Good. It's fake ground that saves water. But it's just as fun. Nicholas, don't give me water out there so they can store lots of water. Crops never even need to be watered. You're very good at it now. Thanks. I mean, bye. I hope you enjoy the video. Now, let's all build a sustainable garden. Nothing's happening.
Super, let's give them a hand.
Just fine. Come on, Jeff, get with me.
Good job, guys.
Good job.
Great job, great job.
Before you take off, if we can just grab a picture of you with the board, if you don't mind if we come down there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, just as a real quickie announcement, I believe we're gonna get this on San Marcos television, is that right? Yeah. So they'll be famous, people will see you all over, you'll be in the 7-Eleven and they'll see you. Thanks so much, boys.
Not the post office.
Great
7-Eleven.
job.
Yeah.
Future Spielberg.
I'll have my job in 5 years.
Everybody get one? Good. Great job, gentlemen. Great job.
Good job, guys.
I'm chuckling because, do you remember what you were doing in the 4th grade?
How'd that?
Little pasty things with, on cardboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, have a good night. Okay, moving right along, we're gonna go to oral communications. Any member of the public wishing to speak, and I do have a few speaker slips. So we'll start off with, is it Mary Newsome? Come on up, Mary.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. This is my first board meeting. It won't be my last. I'm up here to talk to you regarding the water restrictions that are
Mary,
coming.
excuse me, would you
Yes.
mind dragging that microphone over so that we could,
There.
us old guys can hear you?
Is that good?
Huh?
Yes, that's very good.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak on behalf of the water restrictions that are coming up. I have been in sustainability for a long time, and I've already enacted many items in my home and in my yard, and many of everything that they have put down in their little film. And I just want to be assured that I'm not going to be penalized by going ahead and having these things in place and doing my part when many of my neighbors are still supporting marshlands in their front yards. I don't know if the board has considered it. I know there's way too early to give any response to it now, but I'd like my voice heard. I'm not alone. A lot of us have done things. And that's what I'd like to say, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I might, item 2.3 on the agenda addresses exactly what you just spoke to.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mary. We've heard that from a number of people. You're right, you're not alone.
And it's not going unheard. This is being discussed up and down the state because everybody is being painted with the same brush. And those that have really sacrificed should not be. So we're working on that, and I think that's what's coming up. So I hope you can stick around for that. All right.
Thank you. Next, we'll call up Stan Hudson.
Glad you all got to hear me today. I've worked construction for darn near 30 years. Y'all might want to think about starting to all new construction. Every bathroom, if they got one bathroom, you charge them $2,500. And all that money you're going to be collecting is going to be building more power or desalinization plants up and down. It ain't going to be just you guys. It's going to be Otay. It's going to be Sweetwater. Everybody in San Diego Water, San Diego Water Authority start putting in money on build permits to build a house. You got to fork out $60,000+ just to break ground. Every bathroom, $2,500 extra. If you got 4 bathrooms, that's 10 grand. It's not just housing. Every business opens up. You got a bathroom, you got 2,500 grand, 25 grand, 200 or God, I can't even think. $2,500 per bathroom. Businesses, motels, everybody. And then housing, you may want to think about gray water. Every house gets built, you got gray water storage tanks. I don't know if that's going to stop the crap from flowing or not, but if you got gray water, they could dump into the tank and then they could water their dang yards like that last guy was talking. I don't water my yard. I grew up in San Marcos. My granddad sat there with you guys about 20 years ago, and he told me, you don't waste water, and the only water I use at my house is toilet, shower, sink, and laundry. Don't wash my cars, my lawn died. Oh well. And then on top of that, torque everybody off behind me. Everybody that's on already, you add on to their property taxes every year. If a person uses, say, 10,000 gallons a month or less, they get a $40 a year assessed on their property taxes. If it's 10 to 15,000, you jack that up to $60. And if it's more than 15,000, well, 15 to 20,000 if you got a big piece of property. So you jack up the prices accordingly. And if the guy's really wasting and using 30 plus, you nail him. I don't know how it could work and piss off a lot of people in San Diego, but you may want to think about something like that.
Well, thank you, Stan.
Take that up at next WARP when everybody's there.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. And the last speaker slip I have is Mike Hunsaker.
Mike Hunsaker, San Marcos. I've enjoyed water board meetings in the past, but they've been getting a little more significant and a lot less fun. It's hard to come up and follow a bunch of kindergarten students like this and then have to get into some serious stuff. Now, what I'm interested in is the long-term issues as well as the short-term. One of the issues I think should be brought to your attention is a settlement that's coming in with the Agua Caliente situation. The California rules and regulations, as you know, is a hodgepodge of all sorts of different theories and overlapping authorities. But one of the things that has not been quantified is the rights, water rights of Indian reservations. And these reservations have been increasing in size. Under current law, according to some references I have, they can at any time in the future decide what sort of business they're going to put on these reservations, and they get the water on a priority senior basis. I think this is something we should watch. The other issue is the Colorado River. Nevada is in a very poor state. We get about 64% of our water from the Colorado River. If the big straw, as they call it, pulling water out of Lake Mead gets down to a certain level, they are going to go through very, very hard times, and that is going to impact us very significantly. I think we should watch that one closely. The other problem I have is with Jerry Brown's squishy and ever-changeable regulations and laws. And one of the things that he is going to be pushing for is smart meters. And these will be meters that can go down to 1 liter usage factors. And this is an immense amount of data. It is very intrusive. He talks about fines of $500 a day for, quote, inefficient uses that can be defined every which way. At the last taxpayers meeting, there was a San Diego County Water Authority rep there. And I asked, what is going to be done with all these $500 fines? Got no answer. I think that should be addressed as well. And I'm just going to, looks like the timer's stuck. Oh, it's counting up?
You good? Yeah, a couple seconds. Take your time.
That's fine.
Okay.
We'll have plenty of time and plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
As you know, it's a dynamic situation that's
I
going
did have
on.
one last thing. On the Poseidon deal, I think we should define what $2012 really mean. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other speakers, so we'll move on to the consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And then we'll move on. Hey, Dennis, how long do you think that the accounting firm contract is going to take? Because I'm contemplating on moving the drop update.
Very quick.
Flip-flopping them.
Very quick.
Okay, you think so?
Very
Okay.
quick.
So then we'll go to item 2.1, and Dennis, you want to kick us off with the presentation?
Yeah, well, actually, if you wouldn't mind, have Tom walk the board through the process and then what the recommendation is on behalf of staff.
Okay.
Yes, we recently sent out a request for proposal for audit services for a 3-year contract. The Finance Investment Committee, along with staff, interviewed the top 3. That we received 6. We chose 3 to interview, and our Finance Committee was on those interviews as well. And from that pool, we ended up selecting, recommending to the board Rogers, Anderson, Malady, and Scott. And we have with us today Brad Willimer from Rogers, Malady, and Scott. Scott Anderson, thank you. These long names. Can I call it Rams? I'm going to call it Rams. They're acronym for short. And collectively, when we met through this process, we asked all the firms the same type of questions and asked some follow-up questions too, and rated them as well. And as far as fiscal impact goes, the average of their fees about $28,300 over the course of 3 years, and that's within our budget, and also on market as well. So staff and the Finance and Investment Committee join in recommending to the full board to authorize staff to contract with Rogers, Anderson, Malady, and Scott for auditing services for the next 3 years. And I'll be glad to answer any questions. Brad's available also to answer any questions if
Director Hernandez?
From the Finance Committee, how was the process? I don't see anybody raising a hand of objection, so it would be interesting to hear how it went.
I got a couple of thoughts, but go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. I wasn't able to attend all of them, but I know Mike did, and of course Tom did. However, the one I did attend the entire thing for was the one that was selected, which was a consensus of everyone, I think. I liked the response a lot. What I particularly liked was that they brought up the idea of the committee meeting with them or the board meeting with them without staff, and that they would embrace that and understood it, and they've done that in the past. So that was, as well as everything else that checked off on the list, they seem to be the best, but I'll let Director Sinella.
Yeah, and I agree with Director Martin. Just to kind of give you a little background on the process, is we had a roughly about an hour interview with each of the 3 firms. We had established a questionnaire, so all firms got the same questions, and they answered them appropriately. And then we had established a scorecard that we used to rank them based off of their answers. And all 3 firms were great, but the firm that we selected, I think we, at least I, speaking for myself, developed a nice comfort level with them, and believe that they'll be a good partner to work with as we go through this process.
Yeah, thank you.
And with that, we don't need a roll call, but it's just an affirmation from the board to move forward.
So we need a motion though, right?
Motion and second.
Yes.
So
I'll entertain a
moved.
motion.
Second, or move, whichever you want.
Didn't you do both? Or was there?
I tried.
You can only do
It was
one.
worth a try. It was
You
worth
can
a
only do
shot.
one, sir. Which would you
I'll
like to
make the
do?
motion.
Okay.
You did both in one sentence.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
And we can make note in the record that Director Evans is absent.
Okay,
That's
moving
Thank
on
you.
to.
Good job.
Yeah,
Thank you for your input.
Excuse me, I have another meeting in Riverside at 6.
Sure. Well, then you better get rolling.
Good luck.
Better get going.
I
Keep those
look
speeds
forward to
down.
working with staff and the board very soon.
I hope you have a helicopter in the parking
Yeah,
lot.
going north, going north is bad.
Parking lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to item 2.2. I believe that's what most of the audience is here to hear about, and this is on the drought update, and I'll turn it over to Dennis to,
Again,
Chris.
the first part of this will be Chris. He'll just give you the update. This is the monthly report we've been providing the board, kind of the moving target. Item 2.3 is where we'll get a little into more of the conversation. I'm sure the audience wants to hear about the drought rates. But Chris will hit the highlights of everything that's happened in the last couple of weeks, and then I'll take it from there.
Yeah.
Excellent. So this is kind of in the format of what we've been doing over the past few months with our drought update. The big news I think you've seen was that, and General Manager Lamb passed along the information that the governor had put out that drought edict on April 1st, and there was quite a few directives in it, and I think some of the bigger ones were that, no irrigating the street medians, and then for new buildings being installed, need to be irrigated with drip or micro spray, kind of two big points in the governor's executive order. Also, the snow survey, I think General Manager Lamb will have some images of that in his presentation. But basically, when they're at Echo Summit, they're standing there, and typically there's snow on the ground. There's absolutely nothing there. So kind of some bad news from the snow survey as well. Our water production increased during the month of March. It increased 8.2% from last year, but it was actually down from 2013. So you get some of those variables. And we also passed along information about the media was really looking at the February consumption and how our production had increased. And again, General Manager Lamb passed along some info that there was a CWA shutdown up at the reservoirs, and so we were drawing that down and then filling that back up. So sometimes these numbers can really not really tell the whole story of what's going on in your district. Per capita figures, March customers used 83 gallons per day compared to 2014 when they used 77.5. March was warmer, I think several degrees warmer. Didn't get any rain this particular March, very, very warm and dry. So some of those activities, the weather will drive what our residential consumption will be. It's a big driver of it. So as part of outreach, staff were out at the spring festival over at Via Veracruz. Vice President Sanella was there reaching out to customers, and Director Martin was there as part of the chamber. So those were some big events. I'm also going to be staffing over at Home Depot right over here on Saturday. And then we reached out to the farmers market, and it looks like they'll let us out there for free. So we're going to give that one a shot and see how it goes, and kind of see what kind of interaction we get. I think that probably wraps up the drought portion. And General Manager Lamb has some really updated info from recent activities with MWD's board and what the Water Authority is going to do. So I think I'll leave that to Dennis to explain, General Manager Lamb to explain. Questions for me?
No, just thank you, Chris. Your team that was out there on Sunday, I really appreciate them giving up their weekend to be out in the community and start doing some public outreach with regards to the drought as it becomes a bigger and bigger issue. So
It was a busy day for them.
yeah, and they did a great job.
Thank you.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman. Do you have any type of, they were guesstimating at the last street fair how many people they had by how much they gave out of something. Did you do that again?
I think the one figure that popped into my mind was we had some of the Save Our Water bags that were, kind of a giveaway that came to us from, I think, Aqua. And we had 500 and they gave them all out. And so more than 500 people visited the booth. That's a good number.
Great.
Thanks, Chris.
you.
Thanks. Did you have Dennis? More
No,
on
that's
2.2?
that's it for 2.2, and I'll start on 2.3.
And that's just an open file, right?
Yes.
And then we'll move on to 2.3, and I do have one speaker for that. And Mr. McSweeney, would you like to hear the report first, then speak, or would you like to address us first?
I'd like to hear the report first.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes, thank you.
We're in a drought. That was a short version. If you go to the last page of the memo, I think I wrote in there that everything that is written is what we knew as of last Wednesday when I wrote the memo. So everything is moving very quickly. The memo actually starts on page 39. I'm going to kind of not go through that and read it because you've heard all these dates. We can come back to it. I have a couple of presentations I'd like to go over with you very quickly that we got from the Water Authority yesterday when we were down there for a monthly MAM meeting, and then also the Water Authority. There's the picture Chris was talking about, where he's pointing down to the bottom. That's where the minimum has ever been as far as a snowpack. And I don't know if many of you people know that area up there. I used to be up there quite a bit as a kid, and it's nothing like I've ever seen. I was up there in February, and it's just scary how bad it is. I've got two presentations I'm going to do, then I'll come back to this. The first one was what we got yesterday at the Water Authority with the MAM, and it was based upon the water supply scenarios that the Met was dealing with on Monday and Tuesday. So this was all happening concurrent to the board item coming out, which is kind of obsolete already, just because it's happened. If you can go to the other ones, please. Again, the same picture, just to start with. Next, please. Okay, this is kind of the telling picture of the state of California. The blue is what the snowpack should be to get the higher water content. And keep in mind, when he's checking the snow, he's not just checking the depth. We want to know the amount of moisture that's in the snowpack. You could have that nice, light, fluffy stuff that you walk through, and there's not even enough moisture to get it to make a snowball, and then you've got slush. You've got the two alternatives. So we're at 5%, and I think that's actually being probably a little generous. But you can see what the average is, what a normal is, and where we are right now. It's just, it's pretty dismal. It's not something that everybody can talk about and say, well, there's some areas that have snow. There isn't any. Most of the skiing right now is man-made snow up in Northern California. Next, please. Fourth year of consecutive, we're a little ahead of the curve theoretically on the year, but you'll see the asterisk because it's not through the full, that was through April. So the 40% is probably actually a little bit less than that because there's just no runoff right now. So you can see what's happened. And then you see the opposite trend starting in 2007. You know, if you want to run based on a hope and a prayer, yeah, we were hoping and it came back. We got one wet year, and guess where we're at? So if you really look at what that says, is every 10 years you're going to have a wet one. Is kind of, and the others are below average. So that's just where we stand on the water right now. Next, please. This is the only saving grace right now that Southern California has with Metropolitan. I don't know if you know where the San Luis Reservoir is in the Central Valley. You've probably most gone through it by the tours. Back when they had the rains, because they had enough instantaneous rain in December, they had that period, and keep in mind the pumping periods are very narrow because you've got 3 months of this fish, 7 months of this fish, 3 months of this one, they overlap, and you got this very narrow window where they can run those pumps. Well, they did. They took advantage of it. I was up there earlier in the year when I went by San Luis Reservoir, and I'd never seen it that dry, driving on Highway 46 past it. So they got up to 1 million acre feet, and they moved the water down to allow in Southern California. Right now, you've got the other reservoirs, Orville and Shasta. You'll see on the picture to the left, the two big terminal storage. They're holding water in those reservoirs now. They're not going to release any water. They're holding it to the north part of the state in case we continue through the year and we get to the rainy season starting in September, and we don't know what's going on. They'll have some water to maybe bring down, depending on what's going on. I believe, from what I heard yesterday, there's also water still being stored in those two reservoirs for environmental purposes. So what would actually be allowed to come down later and what they're going to have to release is still up in the air. So that's the only saving grace right now, is that they could put water in San Luis. Next, please. Again, here's Orville. To the north, they started out, again, we got that rain in December that took us from a record low that had ever been down there. Got it up to about, 1.75 million acre feet. Then you can see how they drain it. The issue that we're hearing right now is that drain part will not be following through in a normal operation. But again, this is such a, jokingly say a fluid situation, dynamics better, but we really don't know. We just don't know. Next, please. Lake Powell on the Colorado. If you look at last year, if you remember, they pulled, I want to say it was 700-something thousand acre feet coming in the Colorado River Aqueduct in that helped last year. That was at 100%. Right now we're at 66%, and that is actually probably going to drop a little bit because it's not through the current. So that is the other alternate supply that keeps Metropolitan in such good standing, and that's the difference of Southern California versus Northern California. There are local water supplies that come through down here. So the State Water Project, while it helps the Central Valley and it does help Met South, it's not the driving factor. The Colorado River Aqueduct to us is the driving supply of water. Next, please. This is kind of a telling one. This is what Chris spoke about right there on the left. You can see that the Water Authority service area was actually an increase between 2013 and now in the baseline. But that's the monthly reporting, and that's kind of the thing that we've been talking in every board meeting. When you purely look at gallons per day per capita, it is so misleading. It's incredible. You saw the list, I'm sure, for Santa Fe irrigation districts, the poster child in the state, on what you shouldn't do. But they don't take into account the average size lots, 5 acres. Gary Arant, by example, he's down 60+% in Valley Center on his water demand from several years back. He's being asked to cut back another 35. How do you do it? As one of the kids said, you don't have to water rocks, but you can't get blood out of one either. So it's kind of tough to move forward. On the right is kind of a very telling thing. I think some of you went to the NOAA presentation at the CSU San Marcos last week when the guy came and spoke to the class. It's going to be a hot summer. Right now we're running about 8.5 degrees hotter than normal. So I mean, it is warm. On the weekends right now, it'd normally be 70, 72. At where I live out by the Wildland Park, I'm averaging 86. It's just hot. Next, please. Allocation, you can go ahead and skip through these. Skip that one. Okay, keep this one now, please. These are just some of the dates that we're going through. You've seen some of these dates. We all commented on by April 13th. You've got in front of you Aqua's letter and the Water Authority's letter. In response to that, I just got a text that there's a Marie Waldron. She just actually sent a proclamation into the governor asking her to reverse some of these damaging proposals on across-the-board cutbacks. Because like Director Hernandez said, it's being looked at as everybody equal. Southern California got a wake-up call in '91. We've been doing all this stuff for 20 years. Northern California, not to pick on them, but they got their wake-up call in November. So it's a big difference in how we conserve. The unknown is this Friday, they're going to release the draft regulation. Well, they probably got 500 plus letters between last Thursday and Monday. If you're good, you could read 5 letters in a day and understand them, much less 500, and then put a regulation out on the 17th. That's going to be a tough one to do. The problem, what we have through a question mark, and you'll see this in my presentation as well, is we don't know what the deadline is to comment on the draft regulation. So it's going to come out Friday. They're going to promulgate and release on the 28th, the final. So somewhere between those 10 days, there's 4 days on the weekend. That leaves 6 working days. What do we get, 2 days to comment? So that's one of the big things that we don't know. May 5th or 6th, whoever's going to be at Aqua, we'll all be up there. I think the irony is pretty good here that for them to have a hearing that's impacting the state, well, guess what? You're going to have every water person in the state coming to the meeting for the first time. So that ought to be actually a real hoot. It takes place on June 1st when the regulations kick in. That's what we know today. By tomorrow or Friday, I'm sure it's going to change dramatically. The Water Authority's got a regular meeting on the 23rd, but they're not going to take action until the 14th. Everything will be in effect by then. Next, please. Keep going. Go ahead and pull the next presentation up. Next, please. Where are we? Right now, we've provided to the Water Authority our base period demands. They've used those as part of their allocations, and they've compiled those into how they would do it, and they have a spreadsheet that says, okay, this is what your demand was, here's what we think you'll get, here's how much you used, here's what you get for a growth allocation, because we've grown from 2013 to now. We've actually added homes, so they have to give you a little more water for that. And then they have to go back now and figure out who had policies in effect before the governor required it by mandate. They're going to give that amount of water back because we don't want to take another 15% off somebody who's already saved 30%. So that's moving forward. Next, please. Keep going. They did. Again, we're sitting in the room having our meeting. We know it's going to be somewhere between 15 and 20. Well, we got the news Monday night. They were talking 15, but they did adopt it Tuesday. That is 15%. That's what we passed down. Next, please. We went through 4 scenarios on what could happen. Obviously, level 3, and keep in mind, level 3 with Metropolitan is essentially 5% per level. It's not a level 3 that correlates with all of the emergency plans. They have their own different thing. And we did a level 3 at 15%, and then you see this restrictions adjustment. That's what I was just referencing. There's where we get 0 back and saying, yeah, you guys did a good job. It was real nice of you, but you're not going to get any of it back. Or 1B, you're going to get up to 50,000 acre-feet back. They add that all in, and then the far right is what we would get based on a 15% reduction. If you took 15% of 331,000, you get the 290. So that's something that we're working on. The problem with the Water Authority is they won't know what that's going to be until, I think, May 12th or 13th, and the Water Authority's meeting on the 14th. So it's, again, they're going to have probably 2 or 3 spreadsheets ready to go on what they think could be, and we'll be somewhere in between. Next, please. This is the interesting part that goes to show what Southern California, and in all reality, San Diego County Water Authority has done. You can go back, again, I've got to go back to the '91 period. The mantra back then was never again. after the 93 March miracle. So the Water Authority has spent $2+ billion in building improvements, the IID deal where they buy the water from IID, the lining of the canals where they get water that would have normally gone into the ground, they get that, and everything else, plus the desal plant. So if you look at what's on the bottom, the 20,000 acre feet is local potable, and 20,000 acre feet, while it sounds like a lot, that's what we would use in a year. So in the scheme of things to the region, it's a drop in the bucket. The next one is the 180,000. That's the QSA, which is the Quantification Settlement Agreement, IID, and all the other things. So that's 180,000 acre feet that is coming in. It's expensive, but it's wet. 37,000 acre feet is the assumption that from roughly November through July, the desal plant is in effect. And the 257,000 acre feet is what we get from Met. So if you look at the bottom under scenario 1A, that's where we say we get no mandatory restriction adjustment. So that's where that 50,000 versus the 0 kicks in. If we got nothing, it would be based upon a 2.5%, my eyes aren't quite that good, 1.5% increase per year over the 2013. We as a region would have a 5% cutback. So that's what it would say. Now Vallecitos might get 4%, somebody else might get 7%, but average 5% across the board for everybody. What that does, it keeps us in the level 2 of our cutback, which is what we're all in right now. You go to the right, if we get that full 50,000 or 40, let me do the math, 43,000 is the resulting thing we get, theoretically, we're at 100% supply for the county. So we're somewhere between good and 15. Next, please. This is the 20%. Again, we just had a couple of steps just in case it happened. The next steps, what we're going to be doing at the Water Authority is working in for the mandatory restrictions for that base period. We're going to look at each member agency, M&I, municipal industrial, and then SAR, which is a transitional special ag water rate for all the growers. Because if they're in that program and there's a 15% cut, they don't get the benefit of that other stuff. They lose 15%, period. They've gotten a discount, so they lose it right off the bat. So it is still a hit to ag and all those type things, but that's sort of why they get a special rate most of the time. And then we're going to be looking at monthly allocations. Back in 2009-ish, or whenever we had the 10% allocation, we looked at it as a whole for the region. So if the region stayed under our allocation, what they would call Tier 1, and we didn't bump into Tier 2, we let everybody help each other as a whole. It's nice to play nice in the sandbox, but occasionally there's the bully in the sandbox kicks sand in your face because he knows he's not going to get in trouble anyway, so they keep doing it. So the way the Water Authority is approaching, and down at the MAM yesterday we all agreed and supported, is they're going to do it by agency. So if you got to cut back 5 or 10 and you don't, you're going to then bear the brunt of the Tier 2 premium from that. We're not going to absorb it in the region. I don't think we can encourage conservation between agency if we don't have that between us. Next, please. I think that was it on that one. Okay, now go back to my slide, my PowerPoint.
I think that's it. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, next page. I'm going to take the memo that's in the board packet and just talk about it here as far as the bullet items go. Since I wrote the memo on April 14th, Met took the action of a 15% reduction to San Diego Water Authority. It'll be effective July 1 through June 30th. Will be the 15% curtailment. They're going to do a review of the allocation in December of 2015 to see where we are, because that'll be 3 months into the rain season. The general concern that a lot of us have is because of what happened back in 91, 93, they knew how much water they had. They being the state, they being Met, the collective water industry. And we went from that 10% to almost 70% in a matter of 120, 130 days. And it went through the summer months. They were meeting every other week, adopting new policies. That's the general concern, is that, okay, we know it, but are we taking too small of a step? Are we not approaching it right? Everybody supports what the governor's doing, just not how he's doing it. That's kind of where everything's breaking down right now. From a Water Authority standpoint, over the next few weeks, and hopefully on May 14th, the Water Authority will have all of the information they need to identify allocation by agency and for the region. That's why I put May 13th. I'm not sure. I'd send an email in to Dana at the Water Authority. She just couldn't get back to me. She's too busy reading all the good stuff. We're hoping Met will make their decision by then on how much they're going to give back in case it needs to be challenged or protested as an appeal process to get more water back on the allocations. The range could be anywhere from 0 to, I don't think it'll be 0. We're going to have something. Up to 15, I don't think it's going to be 15. I honestly think we're going to be in the 5 to 7%, give or take, somewhere in that general area. The difference between the states kicks in June of this year. The Water Authority and Met kick in July. So we have two competing interests there. Next, please. The allocation from Metropolitan, and let me back up. You've been hearing all kinds of statements about we're already in an allocation and a mandated curtailment. When the governor put everybody to say you have to be in a mandatory curtailment policy where you can enforce, penalize, fine, do all that, there was no number given of conservation. The press managed to confuse the 20 by 2020 and wrap it into the governor's original declaration and then say we have to save 20% more. That was never done. There has been no mandated curtailment of water supply. Just use it wisely. Because, and per the district's ordinance, which is in policy, we don't impose water rate restrictions until there's a mandated cutback. So nothing triggered it. So now that Metropolitan has triggered a 15% curtailment, it leaves us it creates the level 2, 0 to 20% curtailment in the drought pricing. That's what's in the memo, and it shows how the drought, and Tom will show you a couple examples of what this could mean to the normal person. And this will get to your comment on you don't want to be penalized for already doing a good job. 15% keeps us in the level 2 water use restrictions. Keep in mind, you've got water pricing restrictions, and you've got water use restrictions. Level 2 in the water use restrictions is where you're already at. Don't wash down your driveway, don't do a thing you shouldn't, save water, save water, save water. The Water Authority, and this was a key question I had being one of the growth agencies, ourselves, OTI and San Diego, the Water Authority does not intend to declare a level 3 water restriction, not pricing. They don't care about pricing, that's our job, not theirs. They do not intend, they are still viewing this as a wholesale agency. They're going to get 95% of their water. It's only a 5% curtailment. That keeps them in level 2 drought, not drought emergency, drought drama. Was it drought alert? Thank you. I like drought drama better. So the Water Authority is not going to trigger what our policy says, which is you have to go to level 3. But we have an issue on that. Jeff will get to that later on. They're going to say you as a local board politically deal with it within your jurisdiction on how you want to reconcile the state versus local. The Water Authority is saying we're a wholesaler, we've got 95% of our water, you've got 95% available to you, and have a good time, guys. So that's where they've decided to leave it. That's as of yesterday at the general manager staff level to all the managers. The board will be meeting on the 23rd, but I really don't perceive them changing that approach. It would go against policy. Next, please. These are some of the interesting things. I put the fun ones in red. I sent that to you, the board, last week in an email. We have an initial allocation that we have to cut back 25% from our 2013 demands. We missed the cut by 2.1 gallons per person per day. So I've asked Tom and a few other employees that live here to move so that we can get it down. We don't know. We all commented on how did you stop at 100 gallons per day per capita? What's the rationale? How did these guys get up here in the 15 and 20%? And how did you put Gary Arant in a 35% curtailment when he's already shaved 60% of his demand? We can't follow, Tom probably did through a spreadsheet, figured out what they were doing, but it makes no logical sense. So that's what everybody has commented on. The comment letter was provided last Friday. We sent you guys an email with it. You have the Water Authority and Aqua letters in front of you today if you want to read them. The State Water Resources is to publish their notice on the 17th. Again, the question mark is we don't know what time frame we're going to be allowed to comment on. We just really don't know. They're going to issue their dates. The 5th or 6th is when they will be doing it. Again, if you're up at Aqua, plan on attending one of the conferences when they have the hearing. It ought to be pretty lively. The way the water reductions were put in the governor's orders as across-the-board reduction. So, you know, my first comment was to Greg from Rincon, I don't want to go with you to Stone Brewery and tell them they got to cut back 35%. Rincon has got hit with 35% curtailment. So then you hear the talk, well, no, we didn't intend for the regulations to impact process water or building or this, you just have to make it up somewhere. Where? I mean, give me the magic bullet. So we don't know what's going to happen. We just really don't know. Everybody's put their comments in. We don't know if our reduction target will change or not. We really have no idea. Next one, please. The interesting part here is when you read what the governor did, he was silent on anything associated with building, expansion, new. He just said if you put a new house in, don't put grass in, or if you do, you better do it with a micro sprayer. I don't think that's going to work. So I think that's where he's headed. So what happens is the policy says when there's a mandated, ordered restriction, especially the governor declares an emergency, which he has done, what it does is it does trigger the drought rate pricing to go to level 3. But again, keep in mind, pricing. Okay, not restrictions, pricing. Drought rate pricing is one of the only ways we can get anybody's attention, to be honest, in water conservation. You can tell them, you can tell them, you can tell them, but it's when they write the check is when you get their attention. So what happens is this one actually supersedes the water authorities because it's a higher production and comes from the state, and it's a mandate that he has in his policy, so when it's mandated, we follow it. So it triggers going to level 3 pricing. The question we have is, and Jeff will get to this in a minute, well, the second bullet item is that item number 8, he says you shall develop a drought rate pricing schedule to accommodate what I have told you to do. Well, the board already has that in place by virtue of the policies you guys adopted over the past couple of years, so you already have that in place. The question we have, and Jeff will get to this, is does the level 3 by the state trigger our level 3 restrictions? And I'll let him deal with that when I'm done here. We don't believe it does, but that is the big question floating around right now. I think our policies merge well with what the state wants to do from a pricing standpoint. I think we work well with the water authority because it's not being triggered by the authority to go to a level 3, which is what our policy says, as with everybody else in the county. So those are all jiving pretty well. We don't think that his intent on the level 3 issue was to do it because the ramifications of just saying stop are horrible across the board. So we don't think that's going to happen. The things that are pending, the water authority is going to meet on the 23rd. They have a special meeting on the 14th to implement the reductions. I say Vallecitos to consider any actions in May. Stay tuned. I really have no idea. But what I can say is you already have the policies in place for the drought rate pricing. Those are already there. So we're good to go on that. I think the only issue, do I have another slide or is that it? Okay, that was it. The issue, and I was talking to Director Snella before at the pre-board because Director Evans wasn't here, is if as a region we have 95% of our water, yet we're being told to cut back 25, how do you reconcile that with ongoing growth and share the pain and all of that kind of stuff? That's where the unknown is. How do we make that last piece come together? Mr. McSweeney's here, and I think they met with the Water Authority today? Okay, he can brief you on that. I didn't hear what went on there, talking about how the building industry can work within these parameters without being shown as a pariah of not sharing the pain with the rest of us. And I think that's the dilemma that we have right now. I'll let Jeff address the issue on the level 3 drought part.
Yeah, I think I think we can harmonize what the state is mandating on the one hand and the water authority allocation. I think there's going to be some tweaking, perhaps, of our current ordinances, our current water ordinance. And because I think if you look at the language of the order that the governor issued carefully, if you look at that language, what he says is, the State Water Resources Board, Control Board shall impose restrictions to achieve a statewide 25% reduction in potable urban water usage through February 28, 2016. So he's not saying that everybody individually, if you will, all of the residential customers have to cut back additional 25%. He's saying we need to achieve a 25% savings over the next year. And that's similar to what we've done in the past. Secondly, he said these restrictions will require water suppliers to California cities and towns to reduce usage as compared to the amounts used in 2013. So he's going to try to use 2013 as the base year. However, the next sentence, which I think is important, these restrictions should consider the relative per capita water usage of each water supplier's service area and require that those areas with high per capita usage achieve proportionately greater reductions than with low use. So there's an equalizing going on here. So that's why I think we'll be able to harmonize with the additional allocations we're getting from the Water Authority. And so, you know, he directs the urban water directs the urban water suppliers to develop the rate structures and other pricing mechanisms, including but not limited to surcharges, fees, and penalties, to maximize conservation consistent with the state water restrictions. So you have those in place. So I'm fairly confident that as this thing unfolds, we have the mechanisms in place to be able to do that, and probably not have to get too, it's certainly, it'll be more restrictive than what we currently have, but it should be something that we should be able to just modify slightly and be able to comply on the one hand with what the state is mandating, and on the other hand with the allocations we're getting from the Water Authority. So
It's in process. I mean.
yeah, I mean, I think we'll be, I think some of the things we may, you know, for example, and I'm not saying this is what it's going to be, but there may be some decisions you have to make to say we may go to 2 days outside watering instead of 3 days right now, because the 2-day complies with what the state is mandating. So we want to be consistent with the requirements of the state on the one hand, and yet at the same time we do have an ample supply coming from the Water Authority that we're complying with their restrictions that they're going to impose on the district.
There's going to be conflicts.
Dennis, can you explain, and this goes to Ms. Newsom's question, a little bit about what we've done historically as far as enforcing these restrictions? So if her neighbors are not necessarily participating as they should be, what ramifications are there for them, so we can try to keep this equitable for everybody?
You didn't, I don't know if you noticed it, but when we first declared the mandatory drought, we've given you the graph and how many people were calling. It went from several hundred a week down to maybe 20. So I think everybody's ratted on their neighbors already. It's already happened. But what the policy has, and we're looking at updating this in conjunction with the city of San Diego, they have literally a app, thank you, for the iPhone and for the Android. And what it allows a neighbor to do is literally look at their neighbor's house, take a picture, put the address in, and send it. It clicks, it takes a picture, and that goes automatically to the city. So what we're looking at is trying to figure out that, okay, when they put the address, it can link to a database and it'll come to us. So what we would do is what we've been doing for the last few months is if somebody calls, we go out and look, we talk to them. If it's a verbal and that's enough, and we don't see any problem, that's as far as we go. Otherwise, we do send them a notice. On the second violation, it's a $100 fine. On the third violation, I believe it's a $500 fine. Per violation, after that, it continues with each violation. We don't have anything there as far as just saying, okay, we're going to terminate service. That would be getting to the extreme. What we're working on right now, Chris, by the end of this month, what we'll be bringing the board are all the additional steps we're going to do. I've already told you we've got more flyers out. We put posters everywhere. We've got them in City Hall. We've got it in the theater. We've got everything else saying, hey, this is serious. Working with the city as far as cutting back. I've kept the city manager up to speed on it. What we're developing now will be to have employees. We weren't going to do it during the day, but I think we're going to have to. We will pull 1 or 2 department employees from Ed's department in O&M. They're just going to drive around, and really what they're going to look for are wet gutters. That's the easiest way to find the water, look for the gutter. And they will go around, same thing. They will have an iPad with them, take a picture, enter the information, and it automatically comes back into us. We don't have to do anything else. We'll also be doing that at night, driving around. We won't have them out there from midnight all the way because most of our water demand starts to happen at 4 o'clock in the morning. The ops guys can track exactly when all the irrigation starts to kick in. We know when it is, and that's when we're going to put people on the street. The other thing that we also have is just looking at the meters to see what their demand is. You know, if they have a high use that's beyond normal, we automatically go back out for a reread, and we send them a letter that they've got high demand, what's going on. So we go out and let them know. I think James actually had one of our meter readers catch him, say something's going on, your meter's spinning, you got more water than normal going through your meter. So we track that as much as we can, just to do it and enforce it. I'll have Tom, Ann, could you put up the drought rate calculator? Yeah. And this goes more to your question on you don't want to be penalized financially because you've already done it. So we've taken that into consideration. You may recall last year the board adopted the first 5 units of water. We didn't call it Lifeline, we called it Tier 1. That was because we got rid of what used to be called the frugal user credit because it didn't pass Prop 26 and 218 requirements. So the board adopted the first 5 units as the base for everybody, and we charge that at Metropolitan's rate. We don't even put our overhead on it. It's purely, the Water Authority's rate, purely at the Water Authority pass-through. Tom will show you kind of how the drought rate is going to work.
Yeah, and as Director Lamb mentioned, we've got 2 avenues coming here, one on a supply restriction and then one on a conservation restriction from State Water Resource Control Board R. And you have on your dais a copy of our Ordinance 183, which was adopted in 2013, 218 process and everything. So the drought rates are actually in place, and it's based on mandated conservation. So if that mandated conservation comes in higher than what the Water Authority supply allocation cut would be, that's what we would go with. I just have a couple of examples here what it might be at what it is now, and we're in 0 right now. Like I said, we are in level 2, which is a drought alert, but we don't have a mandated conservation number yet. So there really isn't drought rates. So that first column, you'll see 0% cutback. That's what a bill would be now. Then I've got 2 other columns, or 3 other columns rather. What if it's 20%? What if it's a 25% cutback? What if it's a 40%, just for illustration purposes to put it in there? And we actually have in our ordinance the provision, we adjust it to the actual, even if it's 22.5, we have a mechanism to adjust to that actual cutback. So what I did over here, and this is a drought rate calculator. Oh, I'm sorry.
Am I missing something? I don't see any difference.
Yeah, can you maximize?
Level 1, level 2, level 3, it looks like the same number
I'll
to
get
me.
to that. I'll get that. Just setting you up.
Yeah.
Setting you up for right now. Okay, so right now it's 0, but we can adjust to any. This drought rate calculator will be online, but we didn't want to put it online yet because we didn't want to confuse people and say, oh, we want to wait to see what our actual mandated cutback is.
Okay, and one further question.
Yes.
Just for everyone's. This is not in effect now.
Correct.
And we don't know if it will go in effect, but it may go in effect.
That's correct. If we have a mandated conservation number, that's when it goes into effect.
Right, of 20% or more.
No, even if it's 10. Yeah, I don't have the example on here, but we have, for example, the last drought, when this kicked in 2009, it ended up being a 10% to us. So we adjusted that 20%. In the 183, you'll see 2 columns in the ordinance, one for 20, one for 40. Well, if it comes in at 10, we take half of those multipliers and apply that for the 10%. So it'd actually be, less than that. But we'll adjust to the actual.
And just a question. In 2009, this kicked in or
Correct.
didn't?
It did.
Mm-hmm. Kicked in. What was done with that money? Same
That
question
was
someone brought up earlier.
That's a good question. The drought rates are revenue neutral. What happens when we're in a drought? We're going to lose revenue from sales, but we're going to make it up on tier premium revenue. And what we had done is tracked all that revenue to be sure there was a nexus. What also happens is we have some extraordinary conservation measures that might not be budgeted. And so if there's any extra money from these tier premiums above and beyond what we budgeted, they go to cover the shortfall. And we did dip in actually to our reserves during that time, even with the drought rates. So the tier premiums, help mitigate that a little bit.
And if I may continue, Mr. Chair, and this is based on a 5/8 meter size residential.
On this one, you can put in any meter size you want, and it calculates it for you.
Okay, are we talking purely residential, or does this hit commercial,
Nope,
industrial, agricultural?
Not ag.
Not ag.
Not ag, but any other customer. It's because our rates, both our regular rates and our drought rates are based on meter size. But ag is subject to a whole other set of rules for drought, so.
Okay, and an overall question as we're going through this, that I just came to that understanding, and maybe it's wrong, is that the total water consumption in the state of California, of the total water consumption, 11% is residential. 89% is industrial, ag, so forth and so on down the list. So if the governor says a 25% cutback, bring that to some clarity as to what that means for residential customers versus, and I know we have some industrial users in town that use quite a bit of water.
Yeah.
They're going to be seeing the same.
I think it's M and I, so it's both industrial.
includes everything.
Yeah.
That's a statewide number. It's very, very different here in San Diego.
Well, I realize that most of our business is residential, but I'm
Correct.
just saying,
Yeah.
when statewide they go 25%, it's like, how do you cut 25% of ag?
That's exactly
It's not likely.
right.
Well, the ag gets cut, period. They get plain and simple curtailments. And that's the difference, is they come off the top. The ag gets cut right off the top.
They were specifically excluded because of their pain on the state water
Yep.
project.
Yeah.
And the
So
Central
depending on where
Valley
they
project.
are in the program they're in, it varies.
Yeah, we,
Well, Director Hernandez, I have a question there. If we can just have the board hold off the questions until Tom's finished, and I do want to get Mike McSweeney an opportunity to talk as well, and then we'll have an
No,
opportunity
no,
afterwards.
I'll wait till the end. I got half a dozen
Okay.
questions.
Thanks, Tom.
okay, this is just to illustrate, again, this will be available to customers online. To plug in your meter size, we'll just keep it at 5/8, because most of our meters, and then plug in your usage. So right now, I plugged in 11 units. 11 units is the AWWA standard. It's a standard that represents your indoor and essential outdoor use. And Director Martin was exactly right. He observed that at 11 units, there's no change. And that's, we have the Bangkok rate structure, and the Bangkok rate structure was specifically designed to say, those people that are already conserving, that are already using 11 units, those are not the people that we're trying to give a price incentive to conserve, so they will not be impacted.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, but it's appropriate at this point. Bangkok as in Thailand?
Correct.
Or
Yeah, that's the rate structure we have in place now.
Bangkok, okay.
Yeah.
That's
I
important
have
to
to
know.
ask this question. You said 11, but at the bottom you have
He
the
was on
current
vacation
average
in
is
Bangkok when he
14.
came up with it.
Yes, and I'll plug in 14, you can see what happens.
What?
I'll plug in 14 so you can see what happens. Here,
Okay.
plug that in now. So at 14 units, and that's the average, now that person has an increase, after the drought rates kick in, their bill goes up by $2.20. Well, if they conserve only 1 unit of water, they're okay. They're not impacted at all as long as they conserve 1 unit of water. What really happens when it ratchets up is, what if somebody uses twice the average, whoops, put it in the wrong file. Twice the average, then now you're talking, an impact, and their bill goes up by 20%. So they would have to conserve, 4 units of water. So they have to conserve a lot more water in order for them not to feel the impact from these drought rates. And you can go on, but we do actually have some customers that are using 100 units of water on a 5/8" meter. Not many, but there are a couple of them. They will be, severely impacted from this. But we're not penalizing those people that are already using 11 units or less. That's not who we're going after. And it's not a penalty. This is actually a drought rate that covers those premiums, will help cover the deficit that we have from the conservation. It'll also help cover those extraordinary conservation effort costs.
Tom, I had a quick question.
Yes.
What's the thought process as to why the rate for in tier 3 and 4 and drought 1 is greater than the rate in drought level 2? It's 487 at
Yeah,
tier
that's the
3.
whole principle of when I said you adjust to the actual level of cutback.
He's got the same question I had of you earlier.
Are you looking at level 1 compared to level 2, or level 2
No,
compared to level 3?
so if you're in drought level 1 and
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's the same thing.
Each unit's 487.
Yeah, I'll
But-
adjust
but
that.
But when you go to drought level 2, unit
It
is
drops.
439.
I'll adjust that. The regular rate structure only has the 4 tiers. But when you move to a drought rate structure, tier 2 becomes tiers 2 and 3. Tier 3 becomes tiers 4 and 5. So what you're really looking at is 439 compared to 366. And that you have that in your memo as well as in the 183 in front of you.
No,
What you're really looking
I
is.
got you, I see.
Yeah.
It's kind of a diagonal.
Yeah.
They move up.
Because you got,
They spread
because
out.
in the first, in drought level 1, you can go up to 12 units before.
Correct.
Before you go up to tier 3, but in
That's
drought
right.
level 2, you only have 6 units before.
That level is
I
split.
got you.
I had that same question earlier.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that addresses your question that you had of the board, that we don't want to penalize people that have already done a good job on their rates.
I was just speaking to this gentleman, I may have been unclear in what I was saying. I'm more concerned about conserving water. If I have to conserve 25% more water, I don't know how much water I can do. The rate is nice, it's nice to know this, nice to see that it figures out this way. But it's my concern, is the goal of reducing water.
And that's the trick of where we get that 25%. We can't get water out of a rock. So if you're already down at 5 or 6 units, we're acknowledging that by having a rate structure that says you've done what you can. And that's what Tom was saying, if somebody was at 14, but they managed to save 1 unit, it drops them back down into the lower tier. So we know we've already gotten all we can from most homes, but that will still be where we'll be looking at on homes, namely yards.
Yeah, and it kind of goes, oh, I'm sorry, yes.
And we are taking this regardless of how big your property is, or what your bill has been before, and what you may have already done, and much like the lady in the audience.
Yeah.
In some people's particular case, they have cut back to the bone, and they still may be at more than 5 units. If they decide to do anything, they're gonna increase their usage, and although their usage will be less than their neighbor because they've increased, they're gonna be penalized?
Only if you're, I hate to use the word penalized, but your water becomes more expensive when you use, it really kicks in at 110% of the average. If you're using 110% of the average for that meter size, then you're impacted by
So
the
it's
drought
meter
rates.
size, not what you've been using?
Correct.
So
Yeah,
if-
everybody has the same, if if you have a 5/8 inch meter,
Yeah.
all the 5/8 inch meters have the same tier level.
You use 150 gallons?
And if you have a bigger
It's not
meter, we give
discriminate.
you a lot more before you hit the penalty rates.
Yeah, if you have a 1.5 inch meter, you paid more for that capacity.
right,
You've got a right
right.
to that capacity, so you can use more water.
So if you, even if you've used less, but then you add some new flowers or succulents or whatever, and you still haven't got to the allocation, you're still not gonna be penalized?
That's correct.
Okay.
Director Martin?
If I could, if the young lady happens to know, maybe you could address that as a real-world scenario. How many units does she now use? Does she happen to know that? It's on your water bill, I think. Okay, but I guess what they're saying is if it's 5 units or less, you have no change.
Hardly.
11 units or less,
But-
yeah.
11.
But again, I think to her concern, it's not just the.
It's not the price
bill,
incentive, it's also
how
the
do we force you to
non-price.
How,
save, yeah.
how are you?
Price speaks volumes to many, many people,
Yes.
their motivation, and I acknowledge and agree with that.
There's no silver bullet. I think it's a combination of many things. Price will encourage
Exactly.
people to save. Just general awareness that we see on the freeway signs and all the media that's just been going out there, some of our outreach efforts. And then I'm glad to hear that the district's going to become more proactive in getting out there in the neighborhoods and looking for people who might be wasting water. Because although I do know we do get calls from neighbors reporting their neighbors or residents reporting their HOAs, sometimes neighbors might not be comfortable reporting their own neighbors, so we gotta get out there. Yeah, and you might be friends with your neighbor, you wanna conserve water, but you also don't wanna, we can be the water police, so to speak.
We'll pick the board member from your area and give you those little full sticks.
Okay, that's all I have.
That was
unless you
all we
wanna
had, just to kind
see
of.
more stuff.
This is where we're at. It's very fluid. Like I said, the thing that'll kick in right now based on the policies, once the state finally figures out what their final number is, once Water Authority figures out what their number is, you said you've already got the things in place to do it, so there's nothing the board has to do as far as policies. I think the reconciliation, Mr. McSweeney will probably speak to this to some extent too, is how do we move forward without killing any aspect of any area? That's the tricky part.
Thanks, Tom. Mr. McSweeney, apologize for the delay.
Thank you for the evolution of the Bangkok theory.
When we have more time, I'll tell you.
Oh,
more
thanks.
about it.
I appreciate that.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael McSweeney. I'm the Senior Public Policy Advisor at the Building Industry Association. And my boss told me to come to this meeting. I left the county's Technical Advisory Committee meeting on figuring out the equivalencies for when we go to alternative compliance for stormwater. Riveting, riveting. All I could do to stay awake. So I missed the meeting today with the folks from our industry with the Water Authority, and tomorrow at 2 o'clock we have our builder-developer members coming to our offices so that we can brief them.
Good.
But I wanted to make you as directors aware of a few things. As far as the housing market from the Great Recession, it still hasn't recovered. It's kind of gone horizontal. Last year we produced 6,698 total units. That's single-family homes, apartments, condos, total. We need approximately 12,000 units per year, every year, just to keep pace with the internal growth in the county, births over deaths. New units built account for 0.5% of the total units in the county. There's 1.2 million housing units in our county. 2/3 of the new units produced last year were apartments and townhomes. This is significant because they use less water than a single-family dwelling does. This is basically your workforce housing. New homes built today are 50% more efficient than a home built in 1980. So ideally, as we move forward, you don't want to cut off the new homes being built because they're 50% more efficient with water than the existing homes. And I want you to look at what's been built in your city, your region in the last couple of years. It's been mainly the student housing across from Cal State San Marcos, big project. Palomar Station, transit-oriented development, no backyards to water, no front yards to water. There's some apartments next to Palomar Station that I believe just broken ground, and some single-family dwellings. So your general manager is correct. We don't want to see a doomsday scenario where you've got to go to level 3 because that's gonna first of all kill the industry. It's going to start a domino effect across the region, and if you shut down the construction business, across the board, it's going to throw the region into recession. Now look what it's going to do for your district. Your bond payments, you've got reserves, but your bond payments are predicated on a certain amount of development impact fees coming in to pay for those. So we would just want you folks to know that we are here to work with you, and if it looks like we're going to go to something like that, then I think it's in the best interest of your district as well as my industry for us to put our heads together and figure out a way to basically avoid Armageddon. So I just wanted you to know that we're here, want to work with you. This is unprecedented. We've taken great strides in this county, and you should be proud of being part of a group of water agencies that really took it upon themselves to say never again. And you spent that money, you built the infrastructure, but still, look at where we are. So, again, we want to work with you, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Michael. Any
Thanks.
questions?
I do have a question.
Director Hernandez.
It's interesting, of course, we've been thinking about, the worst scenario. What happens if we got to level 3? Oh my goodness gracious, like you just said.
Right.
Can someone tell me what they're doing in Australia with the drought that they've been going through for 14 years and building? I mean, have they stopped everything there, or have they worked together as you suggested?
I don't know, but you know what I'll do tonight? I have a brother that lives in Australia.
Would you please?
I'll call him and ask him.
Send me an email. As I said, we go to these conferences and we hear all about the Australians and how they've wrestled with this trouble for years. That would be an interesting.
Well, I think that, what we're doing locally, I know the city of San Diego, I know that, Kevin Hardy is, I asked him straight out, once we get the regulations lined up, how soon before you build the pipe 3/4 of a mile north to that Poseidon plant so we can start to repurify the wastewater? And he just smiled and he said, yeah, we've talked about that. But it's just, if there isn't a better time for the state and the governor to get to the Water Resources Control Board, get to the legislature, and do what they did after the Northridge earthquake. When the governor waived the CEQA requirement to repair the 10, remember we heard that could take 3 to 4 years to repair, and they got it done in 9 months.
So my recommendation would be, let's utilize this drought to take care of whatever regulations need to be changed so that we can go in that direction, because the Pure Water program down in San Diego's proved that it works. They've been making 1 million gallons a day for what, 2 years? They make it and then they flush it down the sewer. But it's time to go in that direction. That's exactly one of the things they've done in Australia. Thank you very much.
There was a picture when Maureen was giving us the talk yesterday. It was a new toilet from Australia. Ask your brother-in-law? There's the toilet, and then where the bowl would be, there was actually the bowl, but there was a sink and a faucet. So it really brought back, I hate to use the term toilet to tap because it killed it, but they were connected. And then we were all trying to think, well, do you stand over the toilet? I mean, it was a very strange concept, but they were selling them. So
Plus that all goes counterclockwise.
it just goes in a circle.
Backwards.
Yeah.
What it was if you're washing your hands, you would wash them and let it flush.
So it fills for the flush water? Okay, thank you. We were all sitting there staring at it like, well, okay. So beyond that, today was just a lot of information for you. When we get to the item at the end of the agenda about next 2 weeks from now board meeting, we'll have some more discussion on timing of what could happen. And again, this is just a daily thing. I'm spending more time on the phone now than I ever have. We also sent out to you a copy of the email that we sent to all the development community, so that everybody got a copy of that. They know what's going on, the status of what's happening, and we're doing our best to keep up with it.
Director Hernandez.
Just these questions that I had while the presentations were going on. How many users have we had to notify about leaks? Do we have a rough number?
Well, we've got,
half a dozen?
we had the total in your staff report, but we don't have it broken down by how many are leaks, how many are sprinklers on, but.
We'll get that in email out to you guys.
Well, then.
You want a breakdown?
Well, I'll go to the ultimate. How many people have we fined?
Only 2 people.
Okay.
One, just the one. Just the one.
All right.
Everybody else has complied.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
they're
that's
responsive to
telling,
phone
that's
calls.
telling.
You'll be surprised. I think the public does understand, mainly because of the saturation of the press. But I think they're, again, when you start pointing out to them, like with what's in storage statewide, last year Med had 1.5 million, 2.something million acre feet. They pulled over 1 million acre feet out of storage. They've got 1.3 million this year. So they pull 750, 800,000 out, and we don't replenish it in a wet season. This is not an issue of, yeah, we got enough, you just got to cut back. There will physically be 0 water in these reservoirs. It's not an issue of we can move it around the state a little more efficiently, or it might rain out here, it might do this. There will not be water.
Okay. And what I have heard is our region has been identified as all urban regardless of our agriculture. Is that correct?
And that's what's killing people like Santa Fe Irrigation District, Gary, all 3 of the big ag guys to the north, all 3 of them, I think, are in the 35% curtailment. Rincon's in 35.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't figure out the rhyme or reason for that, but they are lumping us as a whole. And that's the problem, is the way they're viewing it. Is he got up in the morning, you've seen the movie with the comedy, It's Good to Be King.
Yeah.
I mean, he got up and he took the pen out and he wrote the legislation.
Director, other thought?
Yeah, maybe you could educate me real quick on the ag within the Water Authority service area. Do they have a replenishment program that's active right now?
No,
I'm sorry, an interruptible?
Yeah, right now there's 2 programs. You've got the SAR program, which is the Transitional Special Ag Water right through the Water Authority.
Right.
And then we actually have a rate ourselves for ag. They pay a different premium, they'll get stuck by the tiers. So when this conservation hits, whatever the curtailment is, that gets passed on automatically to the ag people because they've had a special rate, so they get impacted by it right off the bat.
Is it an interruptible rate? Do they
Yes.
get-
No, they just lose that percentage.
Okay.
Yeah, there used to be a program through Metropolitan, the
Right,
interruptible
which
ag
is
rate.
phased out 2 years
They
ago.
phased that out 2 years ago, right.
Thank you.
Last 2 questions. One, interestingly enough, we talk about the new homes being built and how the 50% less usable. Will we, as Vallecitos, have an opportunity to either get money from Metropolitan or San Diego Water Authority to reopen the fixtures that could reduce water. I know we had that open, and I heard someone say, well, we should have all of them replaced by now. Well, I don't think that's true, but even the ones we replaced 5 years ago, the new generation are even less, and I don't know, are we gonna be able to reopen that opportunity?
That's part of what we'll be looking at from a standpoint of making sure that there's those rebates available to do it.
Mhm.
But to what Mr. McSweeney was talking about, the meeting they had today that I met with the Water Authority yesterday is, how do you get the perception out to 25% cut, but you've got 95% of your water available, yet you've got people's, things are dying because they have to do 25. So how does everybody share in the pain? So part of what the BIA is talking with the Water Authority as a regional program, then it'll get down to specific agencies is, okay, let's say there's an apartment complex. They, for whatever reason, they've still got 2.8 or 3.8 gallon per minute flush toilets. That might be a way that either we can see that they get the rebate money to save it, or that might be something that the building industry says, okay, for every new house, I'll retrofit 3 toilets to help get part of my water. They're sharing in the pain that we're all suffering, but it's not killing the industry. On the other hand, you can't put a $30,000, $40,000 restoration per house and do 3 of them to get enough water for another house.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere, it's that fine balancing we're looking at. But to give you an example, I've got in my house a low-flow toilet, and I kept hearing this funny sound. And what would happen is the little plunger would bend up, it would let a burst of water out, then the pressure would close it down again. But when I would dye test it, hey, it was great. It took me for a while to sit there and actually, I had a drink and I sat there in my bathroom and, watched the toilet. It was great. I've got a great life.
Great life, yeah.
Yeah, I got a great life. But that is what we'll be looking at, Director Hannah, where can we go get that water? And how can we do it? Is it something we offer rebates through MET and to the Water Authority? Is it something we work with the building industry to help do that? The big thing we've really got to go after, you're not going to save it indoors. I can tell you that right now. We already hardened that demand. It's already there. But what you've got are big apartment complexes that don't have the maintenance. Toilets are great the day you put them in. 2 years later, not so good. So there's a lot of ways we can look at it.
And then the last thing, relative to our notification, it was brought to my attention that perhaps we should put these notifications in gas stations and at grocery stores, as well as the others, because everybody's got to go to one or the other of those. So,
make note, Chris.
In an opportunity to pass out things. Thank you. That's
Director Martin.
I have a question on the fines. It's very interesting, we've only given 1 fine out, and everyone else is coming to compliance. How often do we give that fine out? Is it daily, every day? So are they adding up to a lot of money, or is it just $500 and they're still doing the same thing anyhow?
No, it's 100, and I think they're in compliance now.
Yeah.
But if they're not, then it accelerates actually to 200.
Two?
It's 2, yeah, it's a slow build up there.
Is it per day?
Per
notification?
I can't remember if it's per day or not,
You could do
but,
it per day if you were.
yeah.
That's
How
correct.
much, I guess I'm asking, how much was that blatant water hog that we've known for months, how much are they actually paying a fine?
$100. And
Not
they
even
call
worth
it
the
as-
time of what it took our personnel to go out there and check it and go over it and talk to them and talk to them. Just a thought, we need to get more serious about fining them.
But they actually appealed it to me to waive it. And I didn't. But that's all we'll be looking at is, we have to have the nexus. Now, the difference, is, just so you guys understand this too, is when somebody says you haven't done it, fines are not subject to Prop 26 or 218 notice. Because they're not being done as a source of revenue, they're done to change behavior. So they're actually exempted from that.
So Director Martin, so perhaps later on in the agenda, you may want to recommend that we add that to a future agenda so we can
Let's
discuss
think
it.
about it, yeah. My thought is, it's kind of like a speed limit 65, and that's great, but if there are no police, then that's quickly 85, and that's what everybody does. And if we're not out there finding people actively, you're not going to see a whole lot of change.
And again, the problem is today, it's been voluntary, just don't waste. We catch them, they quit. So we can definitely modify that.
Anything else on 2.3? Okay, I just want to say thanks, staff, for all the due diligence and the presentation, and I agree with the speakers, and thank you for those who came out. It's going to be a team effort. We're all going to have to work together because I think we're getting into a bit of an unprecedented dynamic situation. So we'll be in this together as we work through it. Let's move on to item 2.4.
Thank you. And
Chris, I'd like to call you up, and this kind of goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about, but how are we going to continue to outreach?
Do I need to log in? The anecdotally, I can share for the Australia issue. I have connections that work there on water conservation projects, and one of the really interesting things that actually occurs there is when you're landing and you're on an airplane and you're landing. You know how typically the airline pilot comes on and tells you the temperature and the wind direction and how comfortable it is outside. In Australia, they tell you the status of the reservoirs, that this reservoir is at 23%, that reservoir is at 13%, and that's just throughout their whole nation, that's the way it's handled. I am here to give you an update on communications and outreach program. And so back in October, the board selected Katz and Associates to come up with a communication program. And Katz did that customer survey, and they also went through and assessed basically all the communication documents that we've got, kind of everything that exists that we use. And last time I was here, I talked about some of the information that came out from their survey and how we want to enhance outreach to condominiums, to apartments, to homeowners associations. Talk to customers about that tap water, that we need to educate customers about our improved supply reliability through desal. We want to grow social media. We need to educate our customers that we also provide services, that's something that's kind of gotten overlooked, that we need to educate customers about how they can serve and take advantage of available rebates. So those are some of the people we need to talk to. And then Katz went through and came up with a key message platform, and I sent it back to the board on October 8th, and I hope you had a chance to review it, with their specific key messages. That there's basically these 5 messages that Katz identified, and probably not surprising, hey, right at the top, we're your water, wastewater specialists. Tap water is still a good value. It's an incredibly good value. You go to 7-Eleven, it costs you $1 to get, a little teeny size this much. Maximizing recycled water use reduces dependence on this increasingly scarce and imported water resource. And that the arid climate that we live in, and we're seeing it right now, where our temperature's up, 8 degrees from what we've seen typically, it makes water supply and efficient use of water a permanent way that we're going to have to do things from now on. This is the way it's going to have to be. And that we actively pursue ways to enhance the water supply, that we're doing the desal project. So those were the messages that Katz came up with, passed them on. Like to get your buy-in and approval on those. As next steps, they're going to develop a strategic communication plan. It'll have strategies, tactics. Yes?
Can we hold on to Director Martin?
Sure,
If
Director
we could
Martin.
go back to the last slide.
Sure enough.
It's just a question of observance on number 3. Maximizing use of recycled water reduces our dependence on increasingly scarce and expensive imported water. That's a known quantity. It feels good. We do that right now. That's being done right now. Everything that we can produce, my understanding is at Meadowlark, we have sold.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you're talking about some other way of doing that, DPR, IPR, which this board has covered, I don't believe, I don't know if that's one of the things we want to get involved in, unless that's where the board wants to go with it. Because we're maximizing that now. Nothing else we can do to maximize it more.
Director Hernandez.
Actually, we're not maximizing it. Actually, we've got, how many million gallons going right past pump station number 1?
Yeah, I think you've got to look at item number 5 along with item number 3, Director Martin. The general feedback that we got from the public was they didn't know about these things, but these are goals of the board, both in your strategic plan plus what came out of this. So I think the way maybe the way we worded that, of purely recycled water, I think is part of the overall reliability, which will be look at recycled water, look at IPR, look at DPR. But again, you gotta remember, you had some short-term goals, which is look at it, and then you had long-term goals, which is make sure we're not missing the ship. I think that's the message. It's not that we're gonna support just purely recycled, because you'll be getting back next, I tried to get it done for this meeting, but too many items. Your next meeting, whenever we have it in May, will be the final selection of all these different alternatives that you guys want us to look at. That kind of goes into this outreach. But it's not purely, maybe the way we phrased it here, it's not purely just recycled water. And the other part is, yeah, it does reduce dependence, but it doesn't reduce our dependence, it reduces the region's dependence.
Right.
Because it's a local supply.
Okay.
Yeah.
And understandable, it's just,
Yes.
some of the adjectives in there are just.
That's why you guys are
They're
gonna get
fluff.
a
They're
actual
fluff.
outreach plan that says, here's what we're gonna do. We just wanted the basic concept by it.
Because people have asked me about, what about your recycled water? And I said, we already sell
already sold.
everything we can produce.
That's right. You are correct.
Well, that makes me sound like we really don't.
You are correct, we do sell it.
Yeah, I kind of agree that maybe some clarification is due there. I think something about regionally and to Director Hernandez's point, as long as there's wastewater being sent out through all these ocean outfalls up and down the Southern California coast, we're not maximizing recycled water.
Right, and being a partner in seeing it.
San
You guys-
Diego is taking steps with their pure water program to finally do that because it's a cheaper alternative to upgrading that plant.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
And it's taken 20 or 25 years to do that.
Well, you know, I can't remember who it was, but you never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the way things get done, especially in the state of California. But I agree, and that's why, part of the 2040 master plan in Encina is to look at, that you guys approved recently, is to look at building a plant. Do we take whatever's left, ship it in? Now, whether or not we maximize recycled here, because 25 years ago the choice was made to wholesale, then we may still recycle, but we'll do it via another alternative.
A regional solution.
Yeah, a regional solution.
And just one thing, not to beat a dead horse, but scarce and expensive imported water. I haven't seen any studies on what the cost will be of IPR water.
A bunch.
Versus imported water.
But there might not be any imported water.
But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
but it says expensive,
Yeah.
expensive. Now,
I get your point.
You could have left scarcity.
Yeah.
You
Diesel
could
will
have
look like a
scarcity.
And again,
But it's
these are
gonna be
just.
expensive.
Oh, yeah. These are just
But-
the basic talking points. Yeah, I agree.
And I would agree from a message platform, it's good to start almost an educational process with the customers and the residents about IPR and DPR, because as I go around and talk to people, a lot of people don't know about it, but they seem really interested in it once they start hearing about it. But to Director Martin's point too, we may want, I know these are just kind of broad, high-level
Yeah, broad brush.
talking points, but on one hand, you're saying it's the best value around, and on the other hand, you're saying that it's very expensive. So you kind of got to watch your messaging there.
Sure.
I'll take those notes. So, next steps, and if you agree with these key messages, CATS is going to develop this communications program on our behalf with our input. They're going to come up with strategies, tactics, sustained multifaceted outreach, multiple platforms. They're going to come up with measures that we can use to effectively track how well we're doing towards these goals. They're going to come up with a style guide. I'm really looking forward to this. We tend to, everybody kind of does their own thing on the PowerPoint. We'll have a style guide for PowerPoints and so forth. The way the fonts are going to look, the way the graphics are going to look. Really excited. I saw what Tina had done for another agency. Really liked what she had put together. Visual designs, infographics, those nice graphics that really tell the story for you. And then develop a speakers bureau. And so those are kind of the next steps after these key messages are approved. I'll entertain questions.
Director Hernandez.
So what's the timeline on this harangue?
What I'm hoping for right now is to get a green light on these key messages, and Tina is, ready to move forward once we get a green light on these key messages. She's drafted a particular portion of the strategic communications plan, but she's kind of waiting for that. Is this good? Is this what the board agrees upon? So.
And what's the timeline on all that?
So we should be back at within a month with the actual strategic communications plan.
And then what's the timeline on the rest of it? I'm trying to figure out we adopted this, and then I begged Director Martin's, what's the word, I'm begging your indulgence, that's perhaps okay. We started this in October, and I don't know about him, but I've heard, okay, 30, 60, 90 days, this baby would be done.
You're pretty much on track with what we proposed.
Yeah,
It
the
would be-
timeline-
It would be
the
the
timeline
second
is
board
still
meeting of
valid.
every month where you would get an update.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna guess if we do this to you in the second meeting in May, June, you guys should be seeing the draft presentations.
There you go.
Yeah, I would say very easily. Because remember, they're taking what we already have, fine tuning, cleaning them up, getting them consistent to include these provisions.
Right. No, I was just looking to a horizon that I will write down in my little book here.
Director Martin?
Keeping in mind that you didn't get a green light on all 5, you got a green light on 4, and you have a flashing yellow, possibly turning red,
Modified.
possibly turning green on one of them.
Yeah.
So that needs to come back.
Oh, yeah. You'll get it in the communication plan.
Yeah.
But don't hold up on anything, bring it just back with the next round.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I can make that clarification
Okay.
for Tina, that's easy
All
for
right.
me to do. As a share, we have the Water Academy coming up on May 13th, and Public Information Department staff, really wondering if the board's interested in participating specifically like at a lunchtime event and interacting with the visitors.
But interestingly enough, I haven't been to the last one for sure, but the others that we had, it was sort of opened with the president having us.
Yeah, in the morning, I
Yeah.
think he's looking for even more. We can't take you though, because you
Yeah.
keep missing the bus.
So, I'm for that.
And Chris, you can count me, and
I'll be
I
there.
attended the last one. It was very beneficial, I think, for everybody who attended it. I think, was it Director Martin was president at the time, and I think you said a few words. I got a couple words in the very beginning, but if there's an idea that you have where we have some sort of interaction with
And more-
everybody around lunchtime or before or both, certainly, because at lunch, the way it was last time is it was kind of a buffet style, we all sat together, but the board members, anybody else who wanted to kind of make the rounds and just introduce themselves and talk about what they've been learning and seeing.
Essentially
That's
mingle.
what we did, yeah, mingle, yeah, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have a more structured idea with that, certainly, I'd be open to it.
And just a thought, I intended part of it, I didn't attend the whole thing because I felt bad taking up the seat, but I see you used a different vehicle, which was probably a good idea for board members so we don't take up seats. And my other question is, how many people already signed up?
I know the answer, but I don't remember the answer.
Is it sold out?
You know, yeah, it's
Not
full,
sold out,
and
I know
there's,
it's free, but-
we still have a waiting list. In fact, poor Alicia was stressing, she basically kind of overbooked like you do on an airline. I keep talking about airlines. But I think we have, 6
It's a
maybe
full
extra
bus.
people, so we may stick them in a van if we need to. If everybody shows, you know how that works, where,
Okay.
on the day of it, they don't necessarily show up, but, yeah,
And 2 buses,
I think so.
so 100 people?
Yeah, it's a big group. I was looking at we're making sure we got the food right and everything.
Yeah.
So, another question, so you're prepared to have 2 buses if you have enough people, is that what you're saying?
Well,
And number 2, is there still a qualifier that the Vallecitos water rate payers?
Absolutely.
Okay, that is a
Yeah.
qualifier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Want to make sure
Yeah.
that our rate payers are being treated.
Good enough. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we need approval on that?
If you just
Oh.
got consensus, then we're good to go.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, that's all we need. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 2.5, James, if you'd come up for us. And
Who's gonna do this, Rob?
You're gonna
You do
delegate it?
Nope.
Oh,
Rob's gonna do it.
here we go. Uh-huh.
Power play.
There must be something wrong, he's throwing them
Yeah,
under the bus.
exactly. What's the problem with this one?
Did you order another pump?
Another pump? Not on this one, no. My name is Robert Shulla. I'm the Senior Engineer in Development Services. Item I have before you here is the Rock Springs Sewer request for approval to move forward with a public review of the CEQA document here. Basically, this Rock Springs Sewer project here is the replacement of about 3,000 linear feet of pipeline here. It's pipeline that's a little undersized, and also it's reached the end of its useful life. It's currently in design, and running concurrently with the design is the environmental document there to comply with CEQA. We have the draft document before you here. That document is complete and it's ready to go before the public review. That's a 30-day public review process. At the conclusion of that there, we take all the comments that we've received for this, compile them there, make any necessary changes to the draft CEQA document, and then bring the final document back to the board for authorization here. So this is just kind of the preliminary step on that. And so the recommendation from staff here is to authorize circulation of the notice of preparation, the initial study, and the draft mitigated negative declaration for a 30-day public review. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? Director Martin?
A quick question, looking at the map, starting from right to left, obviously you make kind of a southward turn there pretty radically through somebody's house. Is that just because you have to draw straight lines, or is it, what are you doing with that house? Because apparently there's structures there that are going to have to be moved if your line is accurate.
The pipeline itself actually goes through a green belt area. It goes through an easement there from Rock Springs south into the green belt, and it actually goes to this green belt area until, I know that the maps here, it's a little bit off here. It doesn't make that jog between the two houses. It actually goes east all the way to Matthew Lane, and then turns north in Matthew Lane back to Rock Springs.
Okay, so the map's inaccurate?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any houses that are impacted, their physical property other than green space, open space?
There are properties here that we will need to obtain easements from. It doesn't go through their house, of course, here. This is more in their back property areas.
And do you assume you're going to have some problems with that, or?
We have hired a property agent to help us here, contact the property owners, and present. We've had an appraisal done there for the easement that we need to obtain, and the property agent is in the process of meeting with the property owners and making the offers to the property owners for these easements.
And each one is an individual?
Except for the, there's a homeowners association at the very eastern end of the alignment, but yes, we do have 1, 2, 3, 4 different individual property owners that we need to go before to get easements from.
And that's when you knock on the door, show your badge, hi, we're from the government, we're here to help you?
Yeah.
Is that how we do that?
And here's a check.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, most of these, Director Martin, actually already have easements on their property where the
Right.
existing
I
pipe
know,
is.
yeah.
Some of it, we just have to shift to get it out of bad places, so they already have a 20-foot easement. So some will give them their easement back and we'll get a new one from them. But they all actually are already impacted by easements.
Have those notifications already made?
Those notifications there to them, yes, they have been made there, and our property agent is currently meeting with them to field questions from them, field concerns that they may have here.
Have we had any feedback yet?
We have had some feedback there. We've had some of the property owners ask some questions there, like, well, how wide's the easement going to be? Can I still put a granny flat here? All this. Some of these questions we can answer, some we can't. We've had property owners just ask a bunch of things. Well, I've got a water meter that's kind of sitting here and cannot be relocated. So a lot of this here, we'll talk it through with the property owners, say this is what we can and can't do for that there. But as far as the easement there, we'll offer a value for that. Some trees that we need to replace there, we have some options on that. We can either give them a value for that, or we can replace that ourselves.
And is there going to be, I think I'm familiar with this little Greenbelt Park area. Is there going to, are the families in this neighborhood going to lose access to that park temporarily?
Temporarily, yes. They will lose access. We'll split into 2 phases here. You have Woods Drive that kind of bisects this alignment here. So we'll cut into 2. We'll start with the western end. When that's complete, we'll reopen that there and then close off the second
So you're not going
phase.
to close the whole thing?
Correct.
Thank you. Director Hernandez.
And how old is the pipe now?
The pipe now, I believe, is bordering on 45 years old.
Okay. And do we have, are we expecting any flags out of the EIR?
No. The mitigated negative declaration, it just has a couple mitigation measures for biological and cultural resource
And
impacts.
what are they?
From the cultural resources, It's pretty straightforward
Just
here.
have
If
somebody
we,
out there?
if we find anything
Yeah.
archaeological, okay, we gotta stop work. If we find remains, for instance, we have to call the coroner.
Bury them deeper.
That's what the mitigations say there. Biological here, there's that little stream bed that runs through it there. That's technically considered waters of the United States. So we can't trench right through it. We're actually gonna be going.
Steamships
Yeah.
going through there.
We'll actually be going underneath it.
We might find a boat in there that was up there 100 years ago.
Really?
Any other comments, Director
Yeah,
Martin?
my fear is you're gonna find where all the skeletons are buried. How big is the pipe that we're replacing?
The new pipe, the
No, what's the
existing
old pipe?
pipe is 8-inch.
8-inch?
New pipe will be, a portion will be 12-inch, a portion will be 15-inch.
And when this pipe was installed 45 years ago, what was the composition of the pipe versus today?
I believe it's the VCP, vitrified clay pipe. The current pipe or the new pipe that'll go in will be a PVC pipe.
And is the PVC rated for a longer life, the same life, guesstimation?
Estimated they're about 50-year life. Yeah.
So then the actual replacement, I'm assuming we dig a parallel or same ditch next to it?
This will actually, for the most part, be parallel. There's just a couple areas where the new pipe will cross the existing pipeline alignment there, and then we'll have to remove some of the existing pipe.
And I'm assuming that all of James's fugitive odors will be contained during this process?
Yes, at the utmost possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, how deep is the existing pipe? Is it minimum depth,
It's
or-
approximately 8 to 10 feet deep, depending on which part of the alignment it's in. And the new pipe down will probably go in, it's probably between the same area there, about 6 to 10 feet deep.
Would it be possible to point out the easements that you're trying to get?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So we have these two property owners here will actually need to obtain just some easements here. There's an existing old paper street called Hannigan's Way that we will need to get about a 10-foot strip of land in to put our pipeline. It's right next to an existing utility and electrical easement as well, so there's already some easements in there. And then these two property owners right here, we currently have a 10-foot easement for the existing pipeline, which goes right next to their fence. In one case here, actually goes within their backyard. We're proposing to get a new easement that actually follows their southerly property lines. We actually have a blanket easement through the San Marcos Woods Homeowners Association, so we don't need to get new easements there. And then on the eastern side here, we have this little piece of property is actually part of the San Marcos 197 Homeowners Association. We'll need to get a new easement for this pipeline here. There's an existing easement for an existing pipeline. You can see it dashed here. So we're just going to get one additional easement from them as well.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, now I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented by staff, 2.5.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Great, thank
Motion
you, Rob.
approves unanimously with the absence of Director Evans.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2.6.
I'll actually take this one.
Okay.
During the conversation we had on the the drought, the question was brought up by, do we get credit for the desalinated water? So this is kind of the culmination of the latter third of my life to get it here. You may recall the board entered way back in 2012 into a letter of understanding, lack of better terms, that Vallecitos was interested in purchasing water directly from the desal project. You've heard this numerous times. You heard it 2 weeks ago when we approved the connection and everything else. It's taken this long to get to an actual final agreement because they had to take a book this big and pare it down, but this is the same agreement that the board approved back in 2012. We got 3 provisions added to it that are noted on page 134 under the discussion. We got a provision that added that should the San Diego County Water Authority acquire the project, which they're allowed to do after 10 years, we as a buyer, because you are literally considered a partner in that desal plant because you're buying capacity and you're paying full cost to get deliveries directly to us as Vallecitos. So, and the contract says any prior purchaser has the right to renegotiate their contract at that point. So it allows the district the ability to obtain additional capacity theoretically in the future. Another provision that was added is that the only other direct purchase partner is the Carlsbad Water District. They have to take it kind of in different places. I can't, 2,500? They're taking 2,500 acre feet. We had a provision added in there that if any other direct purchaser on this project cannot take, goes in default, or needs to give it up, we as Vallecitos, lack of better terms, have the first right of refusal to ask for that capacity. So let's say Carlsbad could only use 2,000 of their 25, we would be given the option to say we want that other 500 instead of blending it into the rest of the county.
That's in addition to any increase?
Yes. Yeah. One would, excuse me, one would happen theoretically at the 10-year period.
Yeah.
The other could happen anytime if Carlsbad couldn't take it. The third provision we got them to add in, I believe it's shown in red on page, the other two aren't in red, but the last one was one we got them to add during the approval down to the Water Authority. It's on page 142 of the board packet. We had a provision added that if the Water Authority goes back and can now obtain grants or funds or incentive pricing for anything, we would get a proportionate share credited to us as a direct purchaser. So we get our piece of it. Concurrently, if we went and got money directly for our share of it, we would get that for ours and we would share with them. So it works both ways. So we would get a proportionate. So it jives very well with the long-term plans of the district to consider some other time. We go into year 10 of the drought, we might be wanting to ask for twice as much water from the desal.
And do I remember that our rate are fixed to 2025 on desal water?
No. There's
an escalator 2% a year maximum they can allow.
there's a lot of different components that have different
Then
costs.
Maybe it's 2025 that the lines cross with net.
I'm sorry,
That's an
20,
estimate.
you just happened to say almost the same number as the price. Around 2026, we think the cost of desal water is going to be cheaper than the cost of imported water.
Right.
That's the rough projection, 10 years from now.
But the desal gets a 2% increase?
Yeah, they're allowed to go up to 2% per year.
Oh, okay.
And what is that price at that time?
Right now, we're full load at 2,200.
What do you project it?
10 years at 2%. If it did go to 2% per year, say it went up 20%, 10 would be 260, 520 be around 26, 2,700. But what happens in the next 10 years, state of California is going to determine price of water. But again, remember, we're melding it, so that's not we're not taking somebody's
Right,
water going
right.
from 1,300 to 2,600, doubling your bill. That's a melded rate that we've already considered.
Director Martin?
My understanding, and I think we've talked about it before, but I'm not sure, if there's a distinct difference in taste.
Yes.
Between desal and blended desal. So when we take water directly from line, it's not going to be blended, it's going to be direct.
Mhm.
And that's going to vary greatly with what our people are expecting. What are we going to be doing? How are we going to get the messaging out? What do we do?
You will be getting a presentation from engineering, I think, the second board meeting next month, with a graphic presentation of the modeling of where the water will go, how it blends back and forth. So we're trying to keep it within a specific defined area so that you don't go from desal to import, back to desal, back to import. So you're going to get the boundaries of what we're proposing, where to keep the water. Once everybody's comfortable with that, then we will start our outreach program to reach out to all these people, let them know you're going to be within that service area.
Is it possible, without violating any California state laws, that we get a 5-gallon container of desal water so we can taste it and see what it tastes like?
I've got a case of it upstairs in my office.
Oh, there you go.
I'll give you a bottle.
Perfect.
It really doesn't, to be honest, the only difference is you don't taste the mineral and the chlorine as strong. There's going to be chlorine, and we're actually hardening the water. We're putting minerals back in it before it leaves the desal plant. We have to reharden it.
So it's being rehardened prior to blending?
Yes.
Big one here.
Yeah, we have to actually add, the water is too clean, and pure water is actually, the pH drops too much. It becomes corrosive. So we're actually having to add it. I want to say they're going to bring it back up into 300, 350 on the TDS level.
What state?
Kind of what the state would be before it gets blended with Colorado River.
So but the bottles you have up there are obviously past the desal plant, but yet not blended?
Yes.
The ones you have?
Yeah.
Great.
And are we adding fluoride?
Yes, because it's a water authority project, and theoretically, the water coming into the county is
Yeah, water coming into the county.
fluoridated.
But the water coming through the desal, we would have to add.
Yeah.
And so they are.
Yes, they are adding.
Just out of curiosity, that water's not coming into the county, it's already in the county.
It's still water coming in.
Hmm.
We can fight that battle for years. The bottom line, the legislature said if there's somebody who will pay to do it, which there are funds.
Well,
that have
Jeff
paid
wants to
do it,
retire, let's give him
put it
something to
in.
retire.
That's all I need.
Yeah, it's,
Argue that one.
it's gonna be fluoridated.
Yeah.
By us or by
By them.
Get your aluminum hat, okay? You
Yeah.
can come in.
We never wanted to get into that because it's a hazardous chemical, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, absolutely. No,
But it's good for your teeth if you're under 6 years old.
And again, just to bring it down, by them being who?
What's that?
When you say it's being added by them, who's them?
Chris.
The Israeli desal that's writing the contract, IDE.
But in 10 or 20 years,
Then the water authority will
if
do
the
it.
water authority owns it, then they'll be adding it.
They will be adding.
Who's ever operating.
So it'll be
Whoever's operating it.
It'll be locally added.
Yes.
Interesting.
Okay. Do you need any other comments?
No, I just need
Any motion?
I would like, just to make sure we're clear on this, just a roll call.
Okay, well, let's see if we can get a motion first.
Move to approve?
Second.
Okay. Can we get a roll call, Ann?
Yes.
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 Great, thank you very much.
Moving on to 2.7.
This is a thing with the Water Authority. The Water Authority board members are entitled to identify a proxy to vote, not an alternate, not somebody in lieu. They have to have a proxy identified to who votes for them. Back when I was on the board, it was Mitch Dion from Rincon was the proxy that I chose to vote on my behalf, if it happened. The proxy is chosen by the individual voting. It's not chosen as a motion by the district. It's the person that's voting that chooses who the proxy is. What was on record was Bob Topolovac from Allevenhagen. I think most of you guys know Bob. He stepped down as the Water Authority representative for Allevenhagen, and Christy, you just spent the last 3 days with her.
Yeah.
She took up Bob's position on the Water Authority Board. The way the former resolution was written, it was specifically to Bob's name at Allevenhagen. What you have here is just Allevenhagen in case they change the representative to the Water Authority. So in Director Evans' absence, and it's not an automatic thing, you have to actually give a written notification to the Water Authority Board that your proxy is voting on your behalf that day. If a different person was on the Water Authority Board, that person would have the entitlement and right to pick who they want to vote as their proxy. So what you have before is just a resolution today cleaning up the fact that it's just a leave name. Staff would ask that you approve that resolution, and there's a roll call vote.
Any
Move to
discussion?
approve?
Let's see, hold on for a second.
Oh.
Director Martin.
I have a question. So explain to me, I'm sorry I'm missing this. If Director Evans is unable to show up at a meeting and there's a vote being taken, this person votes in our stead?
Yes.
Do we have an alternate?
No, there is no alternate allowed.
And they don't allow an
No,
alternate?
there is no alternate allowed. You have a proxy or you vote.
So if you're not there for any reason, you give up your right to vote as an agency?
No, you have two ways to look at it. If you're not there and you don't vote, the district just doesn't get a vote in whatever that matter is. Now, in general terms, at the Water Authority, if one or two people are missing, it's not gonna make a big deal. But let's say there's a key issue that's being voted on. If she does not give her assigned proxy to somebody, then yes, we miss out on that vote. So really, the proxy is used by most board members when it's an important vote, something that they just can't make. Doesn't happen very often. You might see one proxy every 5 board meetings. But this is Director Evans' choice of who the proxy would be for.
Have we missed any votes?
I missed one when I was there because I was at a conference, and I gave the proxy to Mitch Dion to vote on my behalf.
So that was a couple of years ago, at least.
2012? 2012?
A couple of years.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the only vote we've missed in all
Yeah.
this time.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen very often, but you want to have a proxy in case something happens.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, hearing a motion and a second, we'll do a roll call since this is a resolution number 1413. Ann? Is it 1460?
Yeah, it's rescinding 1413.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Moving on to 2.8.
2.8, this is an annual thing that, essentially, we go back to 1960 with President Kennedy. He proclaimed it National Public Works Week. It doesn't cost us anything. It doesn't commit us to anything. We're just basically supporting the fact that, the country is run on the back of public works, whether it be drainage, highways, freeways, bridges, water and sewer. So this is just a resolution. We did adopt one similar last year and one the year before. And as far as I can remember, back the last 4 or 5 years, we've done it. Again, it doesn't commit us to anything. You're just basically supporting the fact that public works provide the quality of life for people in the country. Staff would recommend approval, and this would be a roll call as well.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, hearing a motion and a second, we'll go to a roll call vote as well.
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Budget update, will that be you, Tom?
Yes, it will.
If you'd like.
Sure.
Sure.
As long as you bring Bangkok into it, it'll be really good.
I could do that too, if you want. I
Killing
may
me.
end up doing
You're
that.
killing me.
And if you can bring up that one slide, that's great. I have one slide, but my discussion will be about an hour per slide. No, I'm just kidding. We have
Move this to a committee meeting.
we have a workshop coming up on April 29th for the budget, so that's when we'll actually talk about numbers and things like that. But reason for this budget item here is just to give you an idea of the process and where we're at, but the more detail will actually be at the workshop. And I really do just have this one slide for you. And the top are the inputs that we look at, and the bottom are the three sections of the budget that you'll see. And revenue accounting, or I should say finance, goes through the revenue projections, and that's not only water sales and ready to serve, but there's also sewer revenue, there's other operating revenue, and there's non-operating revenue like property taxes and cap fees that we have to project and things like that. So the operating revenues will flow into the operating section of the budget, and the other revenues, it will flow into the reserve budget, which is in long-range planning down below. And a lot of that is, there's a cycle to this whole budget, and you'll see when we go through it, it'll end up in long-range planning. What does that reserve budget look like? And we've got some shortfalls, or we have enough, maybe we can assume that, rates for the 5 year, and we always do a 5-year detail look and a 10-year total look to smooth any effects and things like that. And we're very conscientious of our rating, especially we're gonna have a rating coming up soon. I'll address that in the next item. So we're very conscientious about financial planning for that when we get to long range. Cost of labor is a huge part of the budget, and that's what accounting actually has a spreadsheet with individual people on them, and they really take a really hard look at how time is allocated and the cost of benefits and things like that to budget that. That flows through to both mostly the operating budget, but also capital. Just if there's an item of capital that we're putting our time into, that's where that will go as well. And we have a whole page dedicated in the budget to show, very transparent, what is our salaries, what is our benefits, and things like that. Materials and supplies, Ed does a great job this year with a very participative budget, particularly in this part of the budget, where right from the staff level, staff and supervisors are communicating to make budget requests. Accounting is providing them with, okay, the most recent year actual, year-to-date actual, last year's budget, this is what you have. But what they do is they zero-base. They don't just say tack on 3%. They zero-base. They take out, they look at from top to bottom, well, what are we going to need? Let's not look at these. And then last year, we actually started detailing what's in these big categories of materials and supplies. So we effectively zero-base those. They're looked at by each supervisor critically, and then Ed looks at those critically, and James for his department looks at those materials and supplies requests very critically. And then it goes through, and that's not all, then it will go through another cycle when we get to the culmination of all these different inputs. Power accounting does that, and in the old days, we'd ask our rep from SDGE, what do you think it's going to be? Anywhere from 0 to 10%, you know, we wouldn't be of much help to us. So we usually tack on 5% for power going forward. And again, this is long range. We go out 5 years in detail. And in the capital budget, James and Ed both and their staff, you know, look at the capital requests very critically and go through that, and that obviously flows to the capital section. And that is, again, a placeholder until we get to that bottom line, and we'll take another critical look. Dennis has already looked through the capital requests as a team, management team. We've gone through, after it went through staff and supervisors, and have already sliced and diced and moved some things out. But we may have another couple more passes at that before we present to you on the 29th. Debt is relatively easy. Finance will do debt because we have amortization schedules for our existing debt. There's only 3 issuances, 2005 bonds, the 2008 loan with Union Bank, and a 2012 loan with B of A. A little bit different this year. Hopefully we'll get some, and I'll talk about this in the next item, but we'll get some better numbers for the 2005. Will be a little bit lower of a cost of debt for that, and it's in our capital. So then the culmination of all those things, again, are the 3 sections of the budget, and it's like a timpani, you know, give me that drum roll, let me see what happens in reserves. And then we say, okay, now we have to go back and assume either lower rates or higher rates, or cut this, move these capital projects out along the timeline, and things like that. And we'll get to that. We'll have one cut at that before it goes to you on April 19th. We're almost ready to a point where we can put these 3 sections of the budget together. Just today, before the meeting, we had EWA's draft budget, and that's one of the numbers we're waiting on, because then we have to crank in their numbers into our numbers, particularly with capital. So that's it. That's the process. Again, we've got 2 workshops scheduled, April 29th and May 27th. April 29th is the one I told Finance that's going to be the detail one, where be prepared, you know, to go through in detail the numbers, as much detail as the board would like us to go through, but we'll be ready to go through that. We might not have a whole draft budget together, but we'll have the numbers in those sections ready for you to look at. So if you have to entertain any questions, it's just an update for you where we're at.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions? Good. Okay, that's just a note to file. So we'll move on to the bond refunding update then. That was something we talked about 2 meetings ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we'll update you periodically on this as well. We now have a financing team in place. We sent out RFPs, or our financial advisor helped us with this, sending out RFPs. And so for our investment banking, and I'll go over the roles of all the team. The team, you know, from, I call it outside the fence line, is Jeff and myself and Robert Poor, our financial advisor. And then from them, Jeff and Robert took a close look at the different legal people on our team. And then really it was Robert Poor and Fieldman Rolap people that took a look at the investment banking part. Investment banking, Citigroup. So we're working with that to contract with Citigroup for that when they gave the lowest bid on that. What investment banking means is they find the investors to buy our bonds. And so that's what they're going to do. We used to say underwriter. We used to just call them an underwriter, but that's a bad word, because if they're underwriting the issuance, they didn't place all the bonds, and they have to buy them themselves. Citigroup does. So hope if we're oversubscribed, that means they've sold all their bonds, and that's their job. So that's what they'll be doing. And then for disclosure counsel, Stradling, Yoka, Carlson, and Roth is who we'll be contracting with for disclosure counsel. They'll help us put together the statements and things that go before the investors and the required disclosure. Sidley Austin will be our bond counsel, and that's Jeff will work most closely with Sidley Austin there, and they've worked with us before, and they'll do a great job as well. And so that's our team. On the 28th of April, we have our first rating meeting, so we'll be, and our FA's financial advisor is very instrumental in helping us put together a PowerPoint presentation. These days, it's just a call, over the phone. Some people still go out and do the whole thing in San Francisco and present in person, but it's very expensive. And now that cost is borne by the issuer. We're the issuer. And that change happened 10 years ago. So for that reason, we're a little bit more thrifty, and we just do it over the phone, and the results are the same. So the financial advisor will help us put together projections. Well, actually, we'll do the projections in-house and all that stuff, but the FA will help us put it together in a language that the rating agencies know, and key on certain things that they'll be looking at. So that's critical. And then we'll, hopefully by the time we get to you for the budget workshop, we'll have better numbers to project what the cost of borrowing might be for that big issuance, $66 million. So that's all I have for you there, and we'll update you as we go.
Any questions? Director Hernandez.
Interestingly enough, on my trip to Washington, Olivenheim was notified that they had to make a presentation to their rating agency relative to the cuts. Do we have to do the same thing?
Yeah, that'll be a big question from our rating agencies that we'll have to be prepared for as well. They're doing an issuance just like we are.
Right. And so is that something we have to worry about? We already prepared for?
Well, I'll have to worry about it, don't worry.
Okay.
But yes, we have to be prepared for that, because that will be a question by our rating agencies. How does what's happening with the drought impact, especially us, because we're a growth agency? How does it impact us?
And you have that answer already buffed out.
Yeah, and you've heard some of what we talked about today. That'll be incorporated in it.
It's a big question mark.
Well, the water is a big question mark, but that's why the rate structure that the board's already adopted.
Yeah.
What they look at, that shows that the board's proactive in having the stuff in place, that if something happens, you've already got a tool there to control the revenue that's still coming in. Because that's the biggest thing they look at.
Sure.
Tom and his guys will be handling the finance part of this conference call. I'll be there on behalf of the district talking about the long-term planning, stability, what we have, why we do it. So it's kind of a team approach.
Yeah, and the good thing, it's not a new rate structure. We've had it in place, and we've already went through one drought, and we came out good. Yeah.
Director Ellis?
No, he answered my question.
Okay, Director Martin?
Two questions. I think last year we were a AA plus.
We're a AA plus by Fitch and a AA by Standard & Poor's. And this is the Standard & Poor's people we're presenting.
No doubt we'll be a AAA by the end of the year. I have faith in you. My question is this: I haven't been on one of these rate-reducing ideas, but I have been in a number of CFDs, and I know a couple of CFDs refinancing. There were points of no return. A couple of things. Number one, we don't pay anybody anything unless it actually happens.
That's
I'm
true.
assuming.
Yeah.
And there is a point in our 29th meeting where we should have a good guesstimate of how much we are going to save.
That's correct.
And the next meeting should be really close to what we will save, unless something drastically changes, of which we'd be notified immediately not to do the deal if we decided not to.
Yeah.
Because all these good people that you have together all work on commission. So their best interest is to make something happen. Our best interest, the best possible happen, right?
Yeah. You were referring to the May, when you said the second meeting, you mean the May 27th workshop?
Is that May 27th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, by then we will, this is what's called a negotiated sale, not a competitive sale. So we'll actually have numbers before we sell. If it was a competitive, we wouldn't know right until the last minute that it goes to issue. But yes, we should have better understanding
control
by
on
then.
Okay, I've been involved with competitive ones before.
Yeah, and competitive, you're actually looking at the computer screen. It's really
Right.
neat to see it happen, but you don't really know until you see it go down.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was just an update.
Thank you. Moving on to the quarterly investment report.
I'm sure you guys are all enthralled and have questions. Tom would be happy to answer if there are any. Otherwise, that's just provided for your information per policy.
Any
Page
questions?
154.
Great.
Thank you,
Let's,
Tom.
move on to reports. General Manager
I'm
Lang.
going to make my report as long as Tom's. You've heard everything I've got, which has been the water drought, so I have nothing else to offer at this point.
He's drained.
Mr. Scott?
I have nothing to add.
I don't believe we're going to get a San Diego County Water Authority report tonight. Is there anything you got for us gentleman from Encina.
The meeting took place this morning. I was not there. I was on route back to here for Capitol.
And I attended the Policy and Finance Committee meeting on April 7th. The main item at that meeting was the first look at the FY 2016 proposed operating budget for Encina. The big drivers, as outlined in the presentation, energy and requirement for additional people, so. And we had a closed session on labor negotiations, nothing to report there.
Moving on to 3.5, directors' reports on travel, conferences, and seminars. Why don't we just kind of go down from right to left?
I went to Washington DC and met with a number of our local representatives, Peters, Isa, Duncan, Gibbs. We ran into Congressman Gibbs for Ohio, who is a chair of the, I believe, the Transportation Committee. We pitched him about the big issue that we wanted to carry, which was, what the heck is the Army Corps of Engineers doing on Article 1014 of the WRDA bill? We went last year with high hopes that after the bill had passed and they were directed to put together the guidelines as, unfortunately, that's why I was being such a pain in Chris's neck, as soon as practicable. I looked at my watch, I looked at my calendar, I didn't find that anywhere on my calendar, that particular item. 12 months later, we're back there. They've had a couple of meetings throughout the state, listening meetings is what they're called, to get input, and that's about as far as anybody could see anything is done. So our pitch was, we need help to get the Corps into putting together the guidelines. We also asked that they fund Article 16. Article 16 is a funding mechanism through which the Bureau of Reclamation gets money. And the Bureau of Reclamation, their main mission is recycling and reuse of water. Whereas the Army Corps is dredging and dam building, so really, if I was on the Corps putting together money for recycling, no big deal. I'm gonna get to it. But and it's interesting, when I became a board member, the first book that I was given was from former board member Dale Mason, Cadillac Desert. And within the first chapter, Army Corps and Bureau of Reclamation are at each other's throat since the 20s. So maybe we're gonna get some help through this Article 16, Title 16, excuse me, Title 16. We, the organized group in North County, Reuse Water or Coalition, we've got finally the environmental impact report. Is that, or is it what's the I in there? IS?
Environmental impact report.
Environmental.
Yeah.
Is on the street finally for a 30-day review. And we also have, I learned, have begun a feasibility study using the guidelines from the Bureau. And why, I guess they're butting, why the Corps doesn't use the same guidelines is beyond me, but that's probably too efficient. We don't want to get too far down the road with the feasibility study for fear that the Corps is going to change, how you dot I's and cross T's, and we're just going to waste money. So I was unable to bring back a check. I had high hopes to bring back a check. My naivete. But we did get the word out, and it's interesting. I've been back there 4 times. This is the first time that we've had one of the representatives, and that was actually Senator Feinstein's representative, said they would make the call. In the past, they've said, well, if you send us a letter, we'll sign it. If you make a call and they want to call us, we'll listen. But this time, James, I can't remember his last name, it's in my book, said he would make the call to one of the staff, one of the members of the Transportation Committee, and see if he couldn't put some fire under the Bureau. So that was at least some positive note. Again, we were told they're happy to see us. We're one of the few faces that they have been in front of them consistently with a consistent message of regional use as opposed to individuals coming in and say, you know, help my project. So I think we're doing the right thing, and it's just, as I don't like it, but I'm beginning to understand, the water industry is as slow as death in doing anything. So, I hope this happens in my lifetime.
You have any travel?
I had a question of Jim.
Oh, sorry.
Does this mean you'll have another report next year?
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes, I will. I'm gonna not give up on this. Yeah.
On that note, I can't remember when, did we set the date yet, James, for the workshop? We have a public, okay, look at your calendar around May 14th. What we're trying to do is, again, we hosted one last year where we opened it up to all the public agencies that are involved in the public, just to have an open, not a workshop, but an open briefing. So we'll let you know on that date to confirm it, but basically it'll say, okay, here's the project, here's where we're going, here's what it's for, here's the status, here's the intent. So May 14th, tentatively look at that.
And just one last addition, what I delivered personally to all of the folks we met with is, this is something that's not gonna get better next year or the year after. This is the new normal. So be prepared out there. This is the new normal that we're up against. So our finding local independent resources for Vallecitos Water District, and we've already done with the desal, I think is gonna be a goal that I'll be pushing in the future.
And just a, for lack of a better way to put it, point of clarification. Earlier it was mentioned that the Water Academy is on May 13th. Are we doing it on a Wednesday, not on a Saturday?
Is
it?
Yeah, it's Wednesday.
Yeah, historically, it has been during the week.
Oh.
We tried it on a Saturday
We tried
once.
it on a Saturday once.
To get a
Yeah, it didn't change
different
anything.
crowd, but it was the same.
It was the same people.
Same.
Okay, Director Alvar.
Yeah, I attended the San Diego North Economic Development Council Investors Meeting on April 9th, along with my fellow directors here. I think all four of us were there, actually. Two really good presentations, one on the Innovate 78 initiative for the 5 cities along the 78 corridor. And that was a gentleman from San Diego Regional Economic Development, I believe. And then a Sandag presentation from a representative from finance section at Sandag. Very interesting statistics, both current and future. And Director Hernandez had an excellent question that was about water and how Sandag works with water agencies, and got a pretty weak response.
Yeah, we'll be following up on that later.
They don't.
Yeah. And what was interesting to me, attending the same meeting, is they were talking about 2050. And I looked around the room and said, well, I think I can go get coffee, because, you know, I don't think there were 2 people in the whole room that are gonna be around. You'll be there, maybe. Maybe. But the rest of us.
Mike was one of them.
Mike says what?
Yeah, Mike is probably one of the few. The rest of us are, you know, on footnote.
30 and 80.
They said, I just read an article somewhere, I don't know, it's online, so it's probably not true, but that they said that they're so close to immortality that the first person that's not gonna ever die has probably already been born.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. They're probably not 40, they're probably 4 months, but.
And they're gonna shoot.
But I might be that guy.
You might be that guy, huh?
Well, City of San Diego, they claimed they said actuary, because we're all going to negotiations again, and they said that one of them said they were projecting the average age to be 120. And I said, well, if you add me and take me out, it'd probably be 140.
But it's,
Anything else?
Yeah, one other thing, I had in the third and final tour of VWD facilities, and I want to thank you. I don't think I thanked him enough the other day. Put up with a lot of stupid questions from me, so I appreciate that, and you and all your staff are very professional. I appreciate that very much, so thank you.
I appreciate you putting up with all my jokes, so, yeah.
Well, that I wasn't so
Yeah,
So
what,
that-
so appreciative of?
Especially the last one, as you're walking away, can I buy you lunch? Okay, good night.
I forgot my wallet.
When Ed took you fishing, did you beat my record? I have four fish the time he took me.
I don't think in numbers, but probably in size.
At South Lake?
Yeah.
There's no water, so there's nothing to fish.
That's all he said. We said, we're going fishing. We sat there half a day. Drinking beer.
Look at that mud.
Yeah. Two quick ones. The SNETIC meeting that we're all at, I was at as well. The four of us were. Great meeting, a different group of people, very interesting. They gave a presentation on Innovate 78, which was a meeting given at CSUSM on the 7th, 2 days prior to, and I attended that. That was very interesting. I think that we're all trying to assure that every CEO or wannabe CEO in the world gets a job, because there's now another group. It's the 5 mayors, or who they consider the 5 mayors of North County. There's only 5. Last count there were 7 cities, but there's 5 mayors along the 78, which the biggest thing that came out of it was someone, the guy from one of the breweries saying we should rename 78 the Hops Highway. And I just replied, well, Ron Packard might have something to say about that. But it was interesting. I think the Innovate 78 will be more direct impact in the future, potentially, depending if they stay together, depending who stays in office there, of directly impacting either North County EDC or the North County Chamber or the myriad of other ones that are out there. Because it is 5 mayors that have been working on this for a little over 2 years. And they are seemingly working together, but again, that's kind of tentative because they change every election season, or they have that potential.
Didn't they get a cash infusion from, was it Roberts?
Horn.
They gave
Well,
kind of a cash infusion, to kind of say, hey,
Early on.
you guys all get together and talk about it.
Early on, the cities were given, and I happened to be serving on a different level at that time, the cities were asked to donate $20,000 to Horn in doing this, and 2 cities did, San Marcos and Escondido, for which we were supposed to be getting SEDS money. That was the whole
That's right,
reason.
you mentioned that.
And it was going to be all this SEDS money coming in. Well, we were the only 2 cities that gave any money, and we haven't seen any SEDS money yet. So every time it gets brought up, I look at him and go, where's that 20,000 you owe San Marcos? So I was thinking maybe guys should just wrote to check to San Marcos, and they should have let you come in. But it was very interesting. I think their heart's in the right place. Everyone's heart's in the right place. It's going to be who actually puts the pedal to the metal and walks the walk instead of just talking the talk. But both very good meetings.
And then for me, I also went to the San Diego North EDC meeting and echo what everybody said. I'll just say though that it was great to be there. I think it's very important, and this kind of came up as an overall theme as we went through our drought update this earlier. I almost said this morning, because it feels like it's this morning, but earlier tonight. You know, we're all in this together, and I think that the solutions and the collaborations that are going to have to take place to find the right solutions to get us through this, the more we can interact with decision makers in the region, be it elected officials or those who are driving either economic development or keeping the businesses that we already have in place, and those who are like Sandag that are providing some very informative data on the future growth of the community, the region. I think that's a very positive thing. So I got a lot from that meeting, and then the other thing I went to is I also went on the southern tour of the district, and again, thank you, Ed and Tom, for taking us through that. It was informative as always, and it's really disappointing for the other board members if you haven't been to, I was joking earlier, but if you haven't been to South Lake, it's not completely empty, but boy, it's not, it's more like South Pond, not even that, maybe South Puddle. So it's not really a lake, but hopefully we'll get some rain.
Yeah, and I have been. I think the whole board's probably been there one time. But my question is South Lake, is it drained now because of the problems that we have with, or potential problems with the dam, or is it just dried up, or have we intentionally emptied it?
It's just dried up.
It's just
dried up.
Yeah,
Okay.
it only gets water from rainfall.
So now we don't have to pay the divers to go down to fix it because they can walk to it. Is
Maybe
that
I can
correct?
pay for this summer.
Or is that correct, or is that too late?
We might get lucky and actually be able to walk to it and fix it instead of building the culvert now.
There you go, look at the savings.
And I hate to say this, but we did the same thing in '91. We were ready. The lake was dropping. We could do it. And it went from empty to full, literally overnight. So,
I'm working on it.
I'm working on it.
And I'll also say, and I know this is a bit of a dream, but those who think big sometimes can accomplish big things. While I was out there and while Ed was driving us around, I did really kept coming to mind that this would make a wonderful recreational area for our community if we could ever get water into it, and then kind of enact that dream, if you will, between either do it ourselves or a partnership with the city. But it's a beautiful area, and if we could really get some water flowing through there, I think it has potential.
Yep.
Well, hasn't that partnership already happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's coming up again.
That's a done deal.
The partnership is
Is it?
a lease deal that will be coming back to
Time
us
flies.
again.
Yeah, it'll be coming
I
back.
think the lease is, when, this year?
What was the extension? I think the end of this year, going into 2016 is the last extension you
Yeah.
guys gave.
Oh, so it might not be a done deal.
No.
We're all austere.
Okay, moving on to 4.1. I think
Yeah.
we're gonna need to change our meeting date.
We have the ALCA conference, which is a direct conflict, obviously, with the spring, with the first meeting in May, which is May 6th. You're gonna get an earful if you're up there, and if you aren't up there, you're gonna get an earful anyway to press, and I'll be keeping you up to speed anyway. So we have a conflict. I don't know what items we have from staff that are coming forward that we'll need to move forward on that board meeting, if any. So what I would like to ask is if the 11th and the 12th are potential dates for you guys, pencil them in, and as the next week or so evolves, we will firm up whether or not we need the board meeting. Because right now, like I said, I'm up in the air literally what the state's gonna do, what Met's gonna do, what the water authority's gonna do. So there's nothing yet that I need to bring back to you guys, but if the 11th and the 12th, if you can just pencil them and keep them open, we can then decide whether or not we need to have the board meeting. If we don't, we would just then have the board meeting, the second board meeting on the 20th. If that works for you guys.
My suggestion is we've got off one board meeting before, and we're all gonna be at Aqua, so if anything happens up until the 8th, we're all gonna be informed through other sources.
That's what I mean, you're gonna be hearing about it.
Unless there's an action that we need to take.
I'll check with staff if we have anything that's critical to come up with, but otherwise, you're gonna hear everything that's going on that I'd give you in a report, and you're probably gonna be part of it. So you won't need to hear me, you'll probably tell me. So if it's okay with the board, we'll just pencil in the 11th and 12th tentatively, and then we'll play it by ear over the next week or so.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Director comments, future agenda items. Anybody have anything? I have a couple comments. You may remember that we've had discussions as it pertains to the San Diego North EDC regarding working with them on a water symposium. And my takeaway from the meetings that we've had on this is that there was a consensus that that's what the board wanted to do. So I know that they are moving forward on trying to put something together. We're at the very preliminary stages. They're shooting for this summer, probably late July. They're going to, starting this process within the EDC, they're going to form a subcommittee, which I'll be part of. And I know that they've invited Kimberly Thorner, who's also on the board, to participate in that, and they've been already reaching out to other water agencies in the Southern California region to see if there's an interest in either participating or on maybe a panel discussion, depending on how it all comes together, or possibly even contributing to the effort. So there's still a lot more to come, but you guys asked for an update, and I just thought that I'd present this positive progress that they're making towards actually doing something that's water specific, because I know that was important to some of the board members when this matter came up.
Is there any direction as to what the theme is gonna be?
So, no, not yet, and we're probably gonna have the initial subcommittee meeting to kind of kick that off here in the coming weeks.
All right.
Certainly, if any board member would like to attend that, same thing, Dennis, if you or if anybody from your team would like to join. I've been kind of trying to be mindful of staff's time on this, and there's certainly, I think, gonna be a point where Dennis and his team will probably need to get involved to a certain extent, but I don't wanna put any extra work on you guys until we need to, so. But we'll let you know.
Okay.
And just a thought, I won't think you'll be on the subcommittee, but, you know, whatever it is, we all attend a lot of meetings. And the meetings that I really enjoy the most is some where there's really some substance, something comes out of it. You learn something new, a new direction. I mean, we all know we're in a drought and we can talk about the drought. But, you know, a lot of people are still very interested in desal. So I think that should be a big part of people understanding desal. Because, yeah, there's desal, but people ask you, well, where's the, oh, it's in Carlsbad. They don't know the whole story. That could be a big part of explaining it. Plus, start the emphasis on the next desal plant, which California needs. But I mean, just talking about it to let people, educate people on the good stuff that's happening. Not just drought, drought, drought. Everyone knows we got one, but what are we doing about it? Desal is what we're physically doing.
Good point.
And I do assume that it's kind of the same general attendance that we saw at the economic summit, or do you think there's going to be a broader
I do. We're gonna-
outreach?
Yes, so, again, we haven't even had our first subcommittee meeting, but just kind of some brief discussions. I think we're aiming for more of the 250 to 300 person attendee range, so.
Great.
And that also creates a challenge of where to host it, so there's, there's some things that, we're looking at.
One good suggestion is hit Dennis's supplier up for a couple hundred gallons of water, desal water, and use it that day without telling anybody. And
Or
just
you
see
can
what
tell
people notice. Well, nobody watches this. I mean, just a thought, is without saying it, just see, get some ideas.
But I think.
Do something different.
I would agree with you if there was a bottle for each individual on each table or seat, depending on how it's organized. I think that would be a neat experience for those who attend, even if there's not a surprise involved.
Yeah, but if they know it's not.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is they can't give it to me because it's not permitted.
You know, one of the things they've done at the other conferences,
I'd love
they've
to.
had the water
I think it's
taste
a good
test.
idea.
You know, with Arrowhead, desal, whatever,
Yeah.
and then, and let everybody have a sample and go, well, what do you think, which one?
You know, that'd be great, a taste test at the table where they have, and regular tap water.
Yeah.
I mean, just, do something different. Do something people are gonna walk away from talking about. Well, that was different. Yeah, there was 2 hours of talking, but we actually tasted water. Wow, what a novel idea.
Water, gin, vodka, tequila.
Hey,
They're all white, clear
Mix them,
liquids.
try them. Just a thought,
No,
just a
they're
thought.
good-
Do
good-
something exciting.
Good ideas. And I'll brief you as things come up and,
Good. Thanks.
but the good thing is we're moving forward on a water symposium, and that's kind of what I heard loud and
That's
clear from
great,
everybody,
that's
so.
great, that's awesome.
And then another thing that's kind of a strange thing that one of our residents here that lives in Santa Fe Hills reached out to me via social media. This gentleman heads up the Santa Fe Hills Facebook page. I don't know him. I've never met him. We've had a couple of instant messengers back and forth since he's reached out to me. I think he's talked to Tom, maybe some others within the district already, but he through the network he's established on social media of a few thousand people, he's had a few successful events out there in the community park where he's gotten a few hundred people to attend, one day he had the sheriff's department out there, and they were kind of doing a community safety awareness type of event. He seems like he's very drought conscious, and he wants to see what we can do, if we can work with him, and maybe doing like a vendor fair or something where turf vendors and water or efficient toilet vendors and whatever come to the park and where all the residents can kind of go and see what's available out there. And if they're, if you're a vendor, you're certainly at their prerogative, but if they wanted to offer like a discount for the neighborhood so they could start switching out their turf and whatnot. Again, he just reached out to me. I know that there's been some other conversations, but I kind of want to get a consensus from the board if that's something that maybe Chris can continue having a conversation with them. If not, that's fine. Don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but.
I think that's a great idea, and I think we should, because we have different neighborhoods that have that. That's Jim's, you have Lake San Marcos, so do I. I have San Leo Hills, they have a huge San Marcos tree drum,
Facebook.
links, well, yeah, but they do a lot over it, and so, I mean, we can do that in every neighborhood. The Speakers Bureau, which we're gonna have in front of us, June, July, so I think that's a great idea. The summer would be a great idea, to have Chris and us come up with, Richardson, I mean, they're all, I mean, it'd be a great idea, and I'm sure the city would partner in letting us borrow one of their parks for the day. I'm sure they would, because it's a public service thing from another agency. Or we could talk them into it. Or Dennis could talk Jack into it.
General Manager.
If I could, I would, we are contacted consistently throughout the week, throughout the month, by different people who are here to help us. By the time we get through talking to what their purpose is, they're usually very self-serving purposes. You guys have 5 people that are your public outreach conservation. I would ask that you, I understand what Director Snell is talking about. I voiced some thoughts to him earlier when we met about this process. I would say to allow us to vet it very carefully if we do that, because there's always an ulterior purpose. We do look into people whenever they suddenly approach us, how they want to help us. And what we find the majority of the time, if not all the time, is there's a self-serving purpose. You guys reached out last year in your budget, added a specific person to handle purely outreach, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. We funded it, we hired it. So I would ask that you try to stick through that process, that we can control what goes out. If you allow others to blog and take stuff on your behalf, you would be amazed at what happens.
Yeah.
So I just want to.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
I just want to caution you
I
when
agree
you
with
allow
you.
somebody to do that.
I know I would never want to turn over somebody, our Facebook, our other social media resources to anybody. I don't think that's what, and based off the initial texting that we've had back and forth, I think essentially what his only role would be is, I can get 300 or so people to the park. What do you want to do with it? And so if that's his sole intentions, that, you know, that he has that capability through his network within that neighborhood, it may be an opportunity for us. And again, like I said, I don't know.
I understand.
I understand you have to vet them and do your due diligence, but it could be an opportunity where we could touch 300 people, 300 customers.
Yeah, I understand that part.
Yeah, I think it's done correctly. I think it's a really efficient way to spend limited outreach dollars. And districts commonly reach out to homeowners associations.
Yeah, that I have no problem with. I think that's good, and that is a good way, and I think that's part of what Lisa does, develop the blogs that she can send to these people, that they, like San Leo, they've got their own newsletter, and not only that, they've got their own, literally they're linked all together on one big thingy, where they all talk to each other, you know, this technical.
Technical term.
Yeah, technical term. So that would be where we. Yeah.
Something new?
Is that, it's not a can and a string anymore? But that's the kind of stuff we definitely do want to do. I have concerns.
Vet it out hard.
Yeah, just check into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I agree, I think it's a great idea, but I obviously do think that Crystal needs to be we need to take ownership of it. But we can, other people that want to blog and do their Facebook, we can't stop them from doing it, but. Yeah, we
I think if
definitely
it's a
take
transfer of
ownership.
information, that we have a press release, and
Right.
we can send to him, and he puts that press release out to the blog,
Right.
perfect. I think
So,
that's
yeah,
good.
I mean, all I'm asking is.
Yeah, we'll talk
Continue
to
the conversation, maybe invite him to the district and have a meeting with him, I don't know, but.
It's kind of a town hall meeting, but in districts kind of thing. It doesn't have to be in every district, people will want it, but.
And not
we
every
have
neighborhood
enough-
has the capability to, if he can really truly get us 300 or so people to a park, and it gives us an opportunity to invite vendors who provide these drought supporting services like turf and water efficient systems. I don't, you know, to Director Ellerthorpe's part, this might cost us a few $100s, and we can really touch a lot of people.
And I agree, it's a wonderful idea, and we don't know until that day how many people someone's able to get there. We listen to what they say, but.
But he does have a proven track record in that he has hosted.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the most recent one was an Easter egg hunt that he hosted in the community, and there was a lot of press about that, and it was about 400 or 500 people that showed up. So there's some substance behind what he's
No,
talking
it's a great idea, it's a wonderful idea, wonderful.
Where it goes.
All right, anything else? Oh, yeah, we're not going to closed session, so we'll adjourn.
Thank you.